A life-threatening emergency unfolds in a high-stakes race against time. Paramedics rush a critically injured 27-year-old female victim into the trauma ward, her blood pressure plummeting dangerously as crimson pools on the stretcher. Will she survive the sudden nightmare? In the chaotic rush of the emergency room, a desperate doctor leans over the fading patient, shouting to test her consciousness and see if she can hear his voice. Amidst the fading light, her consciousness drifts as she hallucinates that she's merely rewatching a familiar, thrilling medical drama. Her spirit detaches, plunging down into an endless, starry, dark abyss. Gravity loses all meaning as the dark-haired woman floats helplessly through the stellar void, completely disconnected from her dying physical form. She slowly opens her eyes in the cosmic silence, struggling to grasp the reality of her own demise. A sudden flash of blinding headlights cuts through the dark memory of her final moments on Earth. The chilling truth finally hits her as she remembers the fatal truck accident that struck her down on her commute home. Back in the sterile reality of the hospital, the medical team desperately attempts resuscitation as her heart rate flatlines, confirming her tragic fate. Her heavy eyes flutter closed for the final time as the piercing beep of the heart monitor echoes through the room. A single blood-splattered shoe left on the dark street stands as a grim testament to her sudden departure from the mortal world. But death is not the end, as she suddenly awakens to find herself as a brown-haired woman standing beside a quiet blonde boy. They sit together in a cold, dim stone cell, shivering under the oppressive silence of their captivity. In her past life, she was a fanatic obsessed with medical dramas for 15 long years, dreaming of scalpels and surgery. Her dedication was unmatched, having memorized and binged her favorite shows dozens of times over. She studied medical textbooks and watched professional lectures, fully dedicating herself to the art of healing before her untimely death. She remembers lounging on her bed just hours before the crash, startled by a sudden notification on her tablet. The screen displayed a strange recommendation, prompting her to begin reading a fantasy web novel. A blinding magical light burst from the screen, sealing her fate in an instant. To her absolute shock, she has been reincarnated inside that very fantasy novel, taking over a character's body. She has possessed a famous character revered by the public as a saintly savior. In this archaic world, women are strictly forbidden from having professional careers, forcing her to work in secret. Her noble actions were branded as a crime, leading to her arrest for practicing medicine without a license. Under her new identity as the disgraced Dr. Astrid Ober, she now faces a grim sentence on death row. Despite her terrifying predicament, Astrid puts on a brave face and speaks warmly to the young boy in her cell. She looks closely at his gorgeous, messy, platinum blonde hair, realizing his true identity. The tearful, blithe boy looks up at her, seeking comfort in their darkest hour. This innocent child is destined to grow up and lead a powerful rebel force of liberators. He is the legendary protagonist of the entire novel, destined to become a powerful gun-wielding hero. Astrid smiles gently, encouraging the young boy to share whatever is troubling his mind. Overcome with emotion, the boy throws his arms around her and buries his face in her lap. Astrid gently pats his back, soothing his fears and promising that she will protect him. The boy whimpers, repeating the terrifying rumors the prison guards have been spreading. He reveals his dread that she is scheduled for execution at dawn tomorrow. Outside the bars, a guilty guard sweats under Astrid's fierce, furious glare as she scolds them for traumatizing a child. She holds the boy close, reassuring him with absolute confidence that they will survive this. While comforting him, she silently recalls the sequence of events detailed in the original story. Although Astrid was destined to die on the scaffold at dawn, fate has other plans. The novel dictates that the heroic rebel faction will stage a daring prison break to rescue her. But as she glances anxiously at the window, she wonders if the rescuers will arrive in time. Panic sets in as the first light of dawn begins to creep into the dark prison. Suddenly, a massive explosion rattles the stone walls, announcing the arrival of her saviors. Alarm bells ring as the armored prison guards draw their weapons to repel the invaders. Gunfire erupts throughout the corridors, throwing the entire prison into absolute chaos. The heavy cell door rattles as a powerful voice calls out Astrid's name. An imposing figure steps through the dust, recognized instantly as the rebel faction's legendary second-in-command. A handsome silver-haired warrior peers into the cell, demanding to know if she is the doctor they seek. It is none other than the feared rebel leader known as the Grey Lion, Richard. Astrid tearfully confirms her identity, overwhelmed with relief that her rescue has finally arrived. With enemies closing in fast, Richard raises his weapon and opens fire, starting their high-stakes escape into the unknown. With no time to waste, the silver-haired warrior urges the brown-haired doctor to flee, while she desperately warns the young boy to hold on tight. Their rescue is far from a heroic act of charity, as a darker truth looms behind their desperate savior's motives. The reason for their daring prison break lies with the legendary blue flag of the Liberator faction. In the shadows of the rebel base, a beloved leader's fading life hangs by a thread. The chilling reality is revealed. The rebel faction's beloved leader, Jin, is actively dying. A massive obstacle stands in the way of his survival, threatening to ruin everything. In the original timeline, Astrid's lack of true medical skill led to her failing to save his life. The tragedy solidified 3 months later, leaving the Liberators leaderless, scattered, and sending Astrid to her grave. She despairs, realizing she is expected to perform miracles that even the original saintly doctor couldn't pull off. The comedic terror sets in as she remembers her true past life as a simple office worker who knows absolutely nothing about medicine. Suddenly, the silver-haired warrior brandishes his gun, aiming to test her loyalty and medical expertise. She panics, knowing that she will be exposed as a fraud and executed on the spot if she fails his test. Determined to survive her second chance at life, she tries to find a way to refuse his dangerous request. She frantically searches for any excuse to escape this deadly trap, knowing her life depends on it. The silver-haired warrior repeats his plea, begging her to join them and save their dying leader. She politely declines, falsely claiming her lack of a medical license will only make her a burden to their cause. However, she completely overlooked a crucial detail about the ruthless nature of the rebels. Thinking her gentle rejection has worked, she breathes a sigh of relief, believing she is finally safe. In a sudden, terrifying shift, the warrior coldly cocks his revolver, demanding her final decision. He points the gun directly at her head, proving that refusal was never an option for an extra in this story. Terror paralyzes her as she realizes she is staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. A sudden pause in the chaotic clash hints at a grand adventure waiting for those brave enough to join the cause. The legacy of the rebellion is paved by the heroic patrons who support this high-stakes chronicle. The warrior demands her absolute compliance once again, leaving no room for negotiation. Facing immediate execution, the gravity of her terrifying predicament truly sinks in. She internally screams in terror as he points the gun straight at her face without hesitation. Standing cornered in the courtyard, she wonders if he would actually shoot her after going to all the trouble of rescuing her. He coldly presses the gun barrel directly against her forehead, completely cutting off her time to think. His eyes glow with a deadly violet light, signaling that he is absolutely ready to pull the trigger. With the cold steel pressed against her skin, she realizes she has absolutely nowhere left to run. A stark choice appears before her: die right now by his hand or risk dying later by trying to save their leader. Closing her eyes, she takes a deep breath and prepares to make the only logical choice to survive. She immediately surrenders, begging him to lower the weapon and agreeing to go with them. Tears stream down her face in a comedic display of defeat, admitting her only goal is to live a long life. A wave of intense relief washes over her as the terrifying warrior finally lowers his gun. He curtly thanks her before preparing to guide them to their secret hideout. To protect their hidden base, he insists on blindfolding both her and the young boy before they set off. Blindfolded and holding hands, the doctor and the boy are led out of the prison ruins under the starry sky. She tries to stay positive about their grim situation, trying to find a silver lining to her kidnapping. She holds the young boy's hand tightly as they trek through the dark, unfamiliar terrain. She realizes that keeping her promises might be the only way to save the young boy from his tragic future. She recalls the devastating backstory of the novel, where the boy loses everyone he holds dear to the flames of war. Driven by vengeance, the boy is destined to spend 8 grueling years rebuilding the rebel faction from the ashes. He will eventually grow up to lead the liberators, marching forward under their proud blue flag. She can't help but pity the heartbreaking destiny laid out for such an innocent child. Her heart aches thinking about the tragic path a 10-year-old boy is forced to walk in this unforgiving world. She laments how every single character in this novel is doomed to a devastating fate. As they continue their blind journey, she resolves to use her modern knowledge to rewrite their tragic futures. If she fails, she will be forced to watch the people she has grown to care about perish right before her eyes. The haunting vision of Jin's tragic deathbed fuels her determination to change the course of history. Astrid hopes her modern medical knowledge can save the dying rebel leader. The young blonde boy smiles brightly under a shower of warm yellow flowers. Still wearing her blindfold, Astrid tells herself to focus on the absolute priority of surviving. She resolves to hide her lack of medical credentials while begging fictional doctors to lend her strength. Astrid vows to find the perfect moment to escape as they are guided down a stone corridor. A dazzling light shines as Astrid finally uncovers her eyes. A breathtaking subterranean city reveals itself, glittering brightly beneath the cavern roof. Radiant lights glow from the many windows of the sprawling underground complex. Astrid expresses her utter amazement at the underground city while Richard directs them forward. Holding the young boy's hand, Astrid steps forward into the brilliantly lit pathway. They arrive before a towering, beautifully decorated set of white double doors. Richard swings the door open and politely invites the doctor inside. Astrid mentally prepares herself to survive even if she is entering a metaphorical tiger's den. She swallows her nervousness as the heavy doors slowly creak open. Astrid and the boys step into a dimly lit, elegant room where a figure awaits. Richard announces her arrival as their coughing leader stands silhouetted behind a curtain. Astrid panics upon hearing his violent coughing, realizing he is on the verge of death. Richard helps the weakened leader sit up as Astrid enters the room. A gentle voice speaks to Astrid through a flurry of beautiful blue flowers. The rebel leader, Jin, is revealed to be an incredibly handsome man with long dark blue hair. Astrid stands frozen in utter disbelief, completely stunned by Jin's striking visual appearance. Her heart races with sudden infatuation, humorously cursing the author for this oversight. She internally screams about his overwhelming beauty while Jin and Richard watch her react. She swoons over his majestic looks, imagining him unifying the world with his beauty alone. Jin questions her startled expression, prompting Astrid to stutter in nervous denial. Jin leans in incredibly close, asking if she looks at him with pity. The handsome rebel leader rests his hand on his chin, deeply analyzing her expressions. He wonders if her true feelings are a form of sympathy. Jin correctly deduces that she thinks his only flaw is his thinness, shocking Astrid completely. Astrid's sweat drops in sheer panic, wondering if he has some sort of mind-reading magic. Jin calmly clarifies that he simply has a knack for reading people rather than using magic. Astrid remains stunned, internally admitting that his deduction is incredibly accurate. Jin explains that he detects immediate emotions solely through a person's facial expressions. He notes that he fills in the remaining gaps of information with logical deduction. He touches his collar lace, maintaining a calm and alluring posture. Jin leans in close to Astrid, asking if his explanation has cleared up her confusion. His piercing, glowing purple eyes stare directly into her soul with immense intensity. Astrid remains completely paralyzed and breathless under his mesmerizing gaze. Astrid marvels at his terrifying intelligence right before he suddenly breaks into a fit of coughing. She panics in alarm as Jin's violent coughing fits suddenly return. Jin clutches his mouth as a painful cough racks his fragile body. Astrid suddenly senses a grave detail and orders herself to wait. In a flash of action, Astrid grabs Jin's wrist with sudden authority. Astrid grabs Jin's shirt collar with desperate urgency, pulling him close.
Her mind reels in horror as she realizes the true nature of his wound.
She stares intently at his chest, completely focused on the critical injury hidden beneath his shirt. Astrid holds his wrist tightly, her medical training telling her that something is terribly wrong. Her sudden movement causes her foot to slip, making her lose her balance. Jin catches her smoothly, teasingly calling her treatment bold while warning her that further blood loss will kill him. He locks eyes with her seriously, flatly refusing any plans for traditional bloodletting therapy. To survive in this brutal new world, she must first confront the terrifying reality of medieval medical practices. Looking at her weak patient, she realizes that the standard treatments of this era will only lead him to an early grave. The looming threat of failure places death flags around her at every turn. She notes that the room is cluttered and completely devoid of basic hygienic standards. Astrid suddenly gasps in shock as she makes a horrifying realization about her own state. She's absolutely appalled to find her own clothes covered in dirt and ancient grime. Her sudden dramatic outburst immediately draws the highly confused stares of everyone in the room. Flushing red with embarrassment, she urgently requests a chance to thoroughly wash up. Night falls over the subterranean complex as she prepares to lay down the absolute foundation of her treatment. Emerging freshly cleaned in a sparkling gown, she confidently declares that environmental hygiene is her top priority. She notes that a cluttered and dusty room is a breeding ground for deadly infections. Despite his worsening condition, the stubborn commander refuses to stop working on his documents. Approaching his bedside, Astrid asks for his complete compliance with her forthcoming demands. Sensing her anxiety, Jin gently encourages her to speak freely as his physician. Astrid immediately enforces strict sanitization rules requiring everyone entering to wash their hands and wear masks. She lists out rigorous demands for alcohol cleaning, fresh sheets, and diet planning, leaving the rebels utterly bewildered. With the guidelines set, she reaches out to begin her physical examination. She gently asks to hold his hand to inspect the bleeding arm. Jin remains calm as she reaches over to inspect his bandaged forearm. He smiles softly, amused by how demanding his new doctor turns out to be. Her modern, forward-thinking approach sparks a deep sense of intrigue within the rebel leader. Confident in her modern knowledge, Astrid maintains a reassuring smile to keep him calm. Richard reluctantly steps forward with a box of medical supplies to assist her. She uncorks a bottle of high-proof alcohol to begin the disinfection process. She carefully pours the clear antiseptic over his open wounds to kill any lingering bacteria. Jin winces in sharp pain as the strong alcohol stings his raw skin. Wearing a protective mask, she wraps his arm while Jin dryly asks her to focus on his wound rather than his face. She is pleasantly surprised to find that the rebel hideout is stocked with surprisingly high-quality supplies. Looking around, she wonders how they managed to manufacture such advanced ointments in this era. Astrid strictly instructs the young blonde boy on the importance of washing his hands before visiting. She affectionately pats his head, praising him for being so clever and cooperative. Filled with warmth, the young boy happily hugs her waist in gratitude. Watching them bond, Jin's gaze softens as he silently oversees the boy's studies. However, Astrid internally worries that the stress of keeping the workaholic leader bedridden might backfire spectacularly. Satisfied for now, Jin orders Richard to show the doctor to her personal quarters. Astrid's eyes widen in surprise beneath her mask at the sudden direct command. Before she leaves, the rebel leader tells her to address him simply as Jin. His piercing purple eyes lock onto hers as he places his absolute trust in her hands. Exhausted from the high-stakes confrontation, Astrid collapses dramatically onto her new bed. She face-plants onto the mattress, groaning about her sheer exhaustion and fear of dying. She visualizes her exhausting journey from capture to treating the leader, realizing she barely survived the first hurdle. Rolling over, her eyes catch something intriguing on her bedroom shelves. She realizes that every single volume lining the shelves is a detailed medical textbook. To her horror, the books promote dangerous and outdated practices like bloodletting as the standard of care. Knowing these books will only get someone killed, she determines to get rid of them all. She aggressively knocks the outdated medical manuals off her shelf. As she cleans up the mess, a peculiar title on basic alchemy catches her attention. Opening the book, she reads about magical stones that serve as a potent energy source in this fantasy world. A brilliant realization strikes her that magic and alchemy might hold the key to curing Jin's terminal illness. She firmly closes the book, energized by a newfound hope to rewrite their tragic destinies. Filled with a sudden burst of motivation, Astrid happily flops onto her bed, ready to take on the challenge. Outside her room, the silver-haired knight Richard stands completely baffled by the strange noises. Taking a deep breath, Astrid prepares herself as she reaches out to open Jin's door. Astrid freezes in utter shock, her jaw dropping at the unbelievable scene before her. Right there in the open hallway, a deeply mortified Richard stands, hiding his face. From his bed, Jin demands to know why Richard is stalling at the threshold. Jin looks up, completely startled by what he sees entering the room. Jin bursts into laughter at the ridiculous sight of Richard wearing a protective face mask. Utterly humiliated, the silver-haired warrior clears his throat in irritation. Watching her strict medical setup, Jin finds his new doctor highly intriguing compared to others. A mysterious voice questions whether Jin plans to keep this doctor by his side. With an intriguing smile, Jin confirms his decision to keep Astrid close. The next day, Astrid questions the stubborn leader about his coughing fits and daily habits. A confident smirk spreads across Astrid's face as her medical plan comes together. Giddy with excitement, Astrid internally squeals with joy at finally filling out a patient chart. Jin notes her sudden, inexplicable spike in enthusiasm with mild curiosity. Astrid continues taking detailed notes on his physical condition. When she presses him on his dietary habits, Jin hesitates to answer. Astrid is absolutely appalled to learn that Jin survives on mere spoonfuls of food. Her inner pride is offended, sparking a fiery determination to fix his lifestyle. Realizing his fragile body won't hold up, she plans a major dietary intervention. Astrid serves him a specially prepared stew, demanding that he eat it all. Under her intense gaze, Jin reluctantly takes the spoon. The elegant commander takes his first bite of the warm stew. Relying on her past food research knowledge, Astrid prays it tastes good to him. To her immense relief, Jin declares the meal delicious, triggering her silent victory. She immediately begins planning a gentle, easily digestible diet to heal his stomach. Jin watches his overly enthusiastic doctor with a puzzled expression. The victory is short-lived when the stubborn patient suddenly announces he is full. Astrid panics in frustration, internally resolving to force-feed him if necessary.
Taking charge, Astrid aggressively bans him from any work until he finishes eating.
Amused by her fierce authority, Jin playfully comments on her talent for threats. Suddenly, a sharp clink echoes as Jin drops a spoon in distress. Astrid's heart stops as she lunges forward, demanding to know what is wrong. Clutching himself in pain, a pale Jin weakly whispers that he cannot eat. Astrid leans in with deep concern, asking him what he just said. The tables turn when the clever leader cheekily suggests she feed him herself. Astrid's face flushes with anger, realizing he is playfully getting his revenge.
Swallowing her pride, Astrid reluctantly agrees to feed him for his health's sake.
Under her gentle care, Jin looks at her with a softened expression. A remarkably handsome smile graces his lips, catching her completely off guard. Astrid desperately fights to keep her heart from racing under his gaze. Enjoying his meal, Jin praises the food again, leaving Astrid internally grumbling. Staring at the empty bowl, Astrid asks why he never eats properly. Jin reveals that the lingering taste of blood completely destroys his appetite. He gently wipes his lips, his fragile state a reminder of his illness. Taking his symptoms seriously, Astrid promises to find a solution for him. Packing her things, Astrid orders her stubborn patient to rest immediately. Outside the room, Astrid hides her face in sheer embarrassment. Walking down the corridor, Astrid analyzes his respiratory symptoms, determined to cure him. Astrid wishes she had a modern humidifier or mouthwash to clear his throat. A sudden loud shout of her alias breaks her deep train of thought. Turning around, she sees the adorable blonde boy running toward her alongside Reinhardt.
The cheerful boy asks if she slept well on her way to see Jin.
Looking up with innocent eyes, the sweet boy asks if she is truly okay. The boy expresses deep concern because Reinhardt pointed a gun at her yesterday. Reassuring him with a warm smile, Astrid asks if he is doing fine instead. The young boy nonchalantly explains that the knight's violent methods are actually quite mild. Astrid internally panics, completely horrified by the child's skewed perception of danger. The blonde boy adds that he is genuinely grateful to Richard for saving her. Looking down sadly, the child apologizes for her terrifying experience yesterday. Astrid realizes with sorrow that the poor child has grown up in a hostile, dangerous environment. Overflowing with compassion, she pulls the young boy into a tight, warm hug.
She holds him close, determined to protect him from any further trial.
The young boy happily waves goodbye as he heads off to a scheduled meeting. Left completely alone in the grand hallway, an awkward tension hangs between them. Breaking the silence, the silver-haired knight hesitantly brings up yesterday's hostile confrontation. Richard coldly states he won't apologize because saving Jin is his desperate priority. Startled by his blunt words, Astrid quickly insists she understands his desperate position. The proud warrior stares at her in silence, surprised by her forgiving nature. Astrid explains that she understands how painful it is to watch a loved one suffer from illness. She adds that she fully understands the depth of his devotion to saving the commander. Flustered by her unexpected empathy, the proud warrior blushes and admits he was rude. Astrid laughs off the rumors, playfully wondering if she is less angelic than expected. Looking at the medical illustration, Astrid asks if there is an alchemist in the city. With a hopeful smile, she asks if she can be granted an audience with them. Yielding to her request, the silver-haired knight calmly agrees to her demand. Richard promises to personally guide her straight to the alchemist's hidden workshop. The massive wooden doors swing open as they arrive at the secretive workshop. Stepping into the room, Richard calls out to announce they have a guest. A young man in a blue robe pauses his work, questioning the sudden arrival. The young alchemist turns around, his purple eyes widening in complete shock at Astrid's presence. Bowing deeply, the young alchemist welcomes her back, leaving Astrid utterly bewildered by his recognition. Astrid clutches her head in the panic, desperately trying to recall who this familiar boy is. Suddenly, a flash of memory strikes her as she finally remembers his name. Smiling warmly amidst bright sunflowers, the alchemist greets her warmly as Dr. Ober. A dark memory flashes of a tragic past event involving a clap patient. The young alchemist asks if she has been well, creating an awkward atmosphere. Sensing the heavy tension, Richard abruptly excuses himself to go discuss matters with Jin. Left completely alone with her, the alchemist hesitates, unsure of how to behave. Astrid asks him how he knew she was currently working as an alchemist here. The young man reveals that he was the one who recommended her to Rickard. Astrid stands completely frozen in absolute shock at this startling revelation. Looking down with deep guilt, the alchemist softly asks if she holds any resentment. Astrid is taken aback, questioning why she would ever harbor hatred toward him. He notes that Lika bonded with her so quickly because of her kindness. A warm memory of a motherly figure embracing a silver-haired child plays in his mind. He admits he was terrified that his actions would make her hate him forever. Looking at his advanced laboratory, Astrid learns that the commander personally taught him alchemy. She jokingly wonders if the multi-talented Jin has any weaknesses besides his fragile health. Desperation drives Astrid to the edge as she questions Rick about his alchemical creation, prompting his confident confirmation. Grabbing his hand with intense gratitude, Astrid eagerly confirms that she has already tested his miraculous wound ointment. Overjoyed by this medical breakthrough, Astrid clutches the medicine bottle to her chest with a brilliant smile. Blushing under her intense praise, Rick listens as Astrid marvels at how much he has grown since she first taught him to read. Suddenly realizing she almost exposed her true identity, Astrid freezes in sheer panic. Nervously laughing off her slip-up, Astrid internally sighs in relief at narrowly avoiding being caught. Astrid quickly dismisses the awkward moment with a wave of her hand as Rick watches with mild suspicion. Shifting the subject, Astrid asks if the advanced hot water system was also created through alchemy, catching Rick off guard. Before Rick can fully explain, an energetic voice from behind boldly claims ownership of the invention. A bright orange-haired engineer named Louis introduces herself as the brilliant mind behind the underground city's machinery. After Astrid introduces herself, the energetic Louis insists they speak casually since she is the younger of the two. Bursting with pride, Louis eagerly asks Astrid if she enjoyed using the advanced bathroom system. Astrid fondly recalls the incredible shower system that allowed her to freely adjust the water temperature. Pressed for a comparison, Astrid panics, knowing she cannot possibly mention the modern 21st century. Astrid covers her slip-up by calling it dream technology, instantly fueling Louis' hilarious bragging. Louis basks in the praise with absolute self-satisfaction while Astrid playfully cheers her on. Louis explains that the shower uses water attribute and fire attribute magic stones to create a perpetual supply of hot water. She clarifies that once a magic stone's power is completely depleted, it must be replaced. Astrid gasps in shock at the potential cost to the magic stones, but Louis quickly reassures her. Rick proudly adds that a nearby mine and the commander's brilliant business mind keep them fully funded. Louis explains that their weapons are actually based on ancient dwarven technology translated by the commander. She reveals that the entire underground city is an ancient dwarven relic powered by an artificial sun. Astrid visualizes the staggering, crushing weight of responsibilities that the fragile commander carries on his shoulders. A wave of absolute pressure hits Astrid as she realizes how vital he is to everyone. The atmosphere settles as tea and sweet treats are served on the wooden table. Getting down to business, the group asks Astrid what brought her to the alchemist's workshop. With a bright smile, Astrid claps her hands and announces she has a crucial favor to ask. Before revealing her grand plan, she first requests a piece of paper. Louis enthusiastically jumps at the request and rushes off to grab the paper immediately. Taking a deep breath, Astrid prepares her mind for the critical medical request ahead. With fiery determination, Astrid dramatically prepares to draft her blueprints for Jin's recovery. She starts writing, requesting a specialized mouthwash to eliminate the persistent taste of blood. Astrid presents detailed drawings of a humidifier and a stethoscope, explaining how they will heal Jin. Rick and Louis stare in absolute speech-deprived shock at her bizarre futuristic concepts. Sensing their overwhelming shock, Astrid quickly hides her blushing face behind her paper and apologizes. A confident smirk spreads across Louis's face, signaling that she is ready for the challenge. Excited to test their limits, they eagerly accept the challenge and tell her to leave it to them. Louis warmly asks if there is any other impossible request she might have. Deeply moved by their unwavering support, Astrid's eyes sparkle with immense gratitude and relief. Leaning in close, Astrid sheepishly whispers one final, highly unusual request to her new allies. Back in his room, the sickly commander removes his glasses, sensing his doctor's return. He questions the massive pile of luggage she brought, which she enthusiastically defends as medical equipment. Astrid beams with pride as she carries a massive tower of boxes containing her new medical tools. Inside the boxes are custom-flavored medicines designed specifically to make his recovery pleasant. Her impressive medical arsenal includes an improved ointment, humidifier, stethoscope, and professional penlight. Astrid internally swoons over finally owning a penlight, admitting it satisfies her ultimate medical otaku fantasy. Jin watches her with an amused smirk, highly intrigued by whatever crazy plan she has cooked up. Striking a confident pose, Astrid declares that it is finally time to begin the physical exam. In a sudden, heart-stopping twist, Astrid boldly demands that the commander strip off his clothes immediately. The elegant commander freezes in absolute shock, his face burning red as the ultimate medical standoff begins. An intense medical standoff begins as a high-stakes decision looms. With the commander's survival hanging in the balance, a battle of wills commences. Astrid stands frozen in embarrassment as the commander playfully teases her unexpected request. Flustered and blushing, Astrid loudly defends her request as a professional medical necessity. Clutching her stethoscope, Astrid fiercely reiterates that the exam is strictly for his treatment. The commander gazes at her in silent contemplation, assessing his doctor's determination. Astrid nervously asks if he lacks trust in her, while he cryptically hesitates to answer. The handsome commander suddenly leans in incredibly close, catching Astrid completely off guard. Blushing wildly, Astrid panics and clarifies she only needs him to uncover his chest. Amused by her dramatic reaction, Jin calmless yields and agrees to her terms. The commander surrenders to his frantic doctor, raising his hands in mock defeat. Jin slowly unbuttons his white shirt, exposing his chest for the examination. Astrid suppresses her nervousness, silently noting with concern how dangerously thin the commander is. Astrid gently places her stethoscope against Jin's bare chest, listening closely to his heartbeat. An intense, heavy silence fills the room, punctuated only by the clock's steady ticking. Astrid carefully analyzes his faint pulse, harboring deep, silent worries about his condition. Jin watches her face closely, sensing the unspoken gravity of her silent diagnosis. Regaining her composure, Astrid firmly instructs him to take his custom medicine consistently. She insists he perform daily light walks with assistance to prevent further muscle degeneration. Jin asks to walk unassisted, but Astrid flatly rejects the idea due to injury risks. Astrid suggests he keep an attendant nearby at all times to ensure his safety. Jin's expression hardens as he bluntly reveals he refuses to employ personal attendants. Astrid is left utterly baffled by his stubborn refusal to receive basic help. Jin passionately explains that he sees himself as no different or better than anyone else. Astrid is deeply stunned by the commander's unexpectedly humble and egalitarian mindset. She reflects on how rare such humility is for the absolute ruler of this underground city. A warm memory highlights Jin's genuine care and devotion to the welfare of his people. Overwhelmed with profound admiration, Astrid silently praises his noble character as Jin clears his throat. Reaching out, Astrid firmly takes his hand to propose a different perspective on the matter. She urges him to view the assistant not as a servant but as a loyal comrade. She passionately reminds him that as a patient, receiving care is his absolute right. Astrid earnestly implores the fragile commander to focus entirely on making a swift recovery. Deeply moved by her earnest plea, a gentle, genuine smile spreads across Jin's face. Jin agrees to her terms, promising to ask the unassigned children for assistance. Astrid beams with pure joy, thrilled that he finally accepted her medical advice. Jin playfully questions her intense excitement, deeply touched by her sincere desire to cure him. Astrid enthusiastically confirms her commitment, causing Jin to momentarily pause in surprise. Astrid boldly declares that Sheer did not come to this city without a clear purpose.
Striking a confident and proud pose, Astrid stands determined to fulfill her doctorly duties.
Astrid accidentally blurts out that she constantly thinks about him, leaving Jin completely speechless. Suddenly realizing how incredibly romantic her words sounded, Astrid internally screams in absolute panic. Jin chuckles softly, promising to keep her passionate thoughts in mind. He flashes an incredibly charming smile, completely disarming his flustered doctor. Back at her desk, Astrid taps her pen in deep, frustrated contemplation. Astrid sighs over her inability to provide modern oxygen therapy to the commander. Her eyes land on a botanical book page featuring illustrations of specific healing plants. A sudden stroke of medical genius hits her, sparking a brilliant new idea. Leaping to her feet in excitement, Astrid realizes she has found the perfect solution. The scene shifts to the library as she uncovers a crucial clue for her next major medical breakthrough. Rick looks up in surprise, calling out to her as Dr. Ober. A grand medical revelation begins as Astrid is presented with a custom lavender-scented body wash freshly crafted by Rickard. Quickly clarifying her intentions, she excitedly asks Richard about the underground city's hidden forest. She eagerly requests to visit the forest, capturing the silver-haired alchemist's quiet curiosity. Without waiting for an answer, she passionately grabs his hand to seal the deal. Driven by pure excitement, she drags a surprised Richard along to find her answers. Richard leads the way, his striking appearance illuminated by a sudden brilliant light. They finally arrive at a breathtaking sunlit greenhouse, overflowing with vibrant blooming flowers. Astrid is instantly rejuvenated by the pristine, oxygen-rich air of the lush conservatory. Deeply curious, Richard questions her sudden obsession with visiting the greenhouse. Astrid asks to use the greenhouse, prompting Richard to wonder about her brilliant new strategy. She recalls a specialized medical herb encyclopedia that proved crucial for crafting Jin's healing ointment. Astrid identifies specific botanical specimens inside that can help alleviate Jin's severe respiratory conditions. With all the pieces in place, Astrid prepares to unveil her master medical strategy. She selects specific respiratory-friendly plants to serve as the core of her healing therapy. The plan involves placing a therapeutic bed directly in the center of the oxygen-rich greenhouse. This setup will allow the patient to rest comfortably while constantly inhaling the healing botanical air. Astrid nervously asks for the commander's feedback on her unconventional medical blueprint. She awaits his response with bated breath, desperately hoping her plan will be accepted. The commander pauses, deeply contemplating the therapeutic merits of her proposal. Breaking the tension, Jin offers a warm smile and agrees that her strategy is worth testing. Astrid enthusiastically gears up for some gardening, leaving a perplexed Richard trailing in her wake. The scene shifts as the busy doctor tirelessly prepares the pristine healing sanctuary. Every corner of the conservatory is transformed into a breathtaking botanical haven. Her hard work creates a stunning, deeply revitalizing atmosphere for the recovery process. Astrid proudly presents the finished greenhouse to Jin, who is thoroughly impressed by her dedication.
Richard reveals that Astrid tirelessly disinfected every single inch of the space just for Jin's safety.
Lowering his protective mask, Jin prepares to experience the newly purified air for himself. The commander takes a deep, calm breath of the pure, oxygen-rich botanical air. Astrid eagerly watches him, her face lighting up with intense hope and excitement. She joyfully declares that he won't even need his protective mask inside this sterile paradise. Overwhelmed with profound relief, Astrid proudly celebrates the undeniable success of her botanical therapy. Astrid enthusiastically explains the healing properties to a calm Jin, while Richard watches with an amused smirk. Jin is so enchanted by the soothing sanctuary that he jokingly asks to relocate his bedroom permanently. Astrid quickly shuts down the idea, warning him about the nocturnal toxicity of certain greenhouse plants. Astrid turns away slightly, her cheeks flushing red as she steals a quiet glance at the commander. Framed by lush blossoms, the handsome commander flashes a breathtakingly serene and grateful smile. Astrid is completely disarmed, silently swooning over how ethereal the commander looks amidst the flowers. A wave of pure happiness washes over Astrid as her critical mission succeeds. She quietly whispers a prayer of gratitude, incredibly relieved that her hard work paid off. Jin's gentle, affectionate gaze remains locked onto his dedicated and brilliant doctor. Stepping forward with his cane, the commander suddenly breaks the peaceful silence. He gently reaches out, his expression softening as he speaks to her in a low, gentle voice. Astrid freezes in absolute shock as his warm hand gently cups her blushing cheek. Her heart pounds furiously as she panics over this incredibly intimate and unexpected twist. Instead of a romantic gesture, Jin simply plucks a stray flower twig caught in her hair. With a playful smirk, the commander teases his flustered doctor for her surprising clumsiness. The delicate white blossoms rest gently in his hand, a silent testament to their shared efforts. Astrid's eyes widen in sheer speechless embarrassment as she realizes she completely misread the moment. She internally screams at her own romantic delusions while the two men look on with mild amusement. Red-faced and completely flustered, Astrid dramatically runs off to escape the embarrassing situation, leaving the commander smiling in her wake. Richard is deeply intrigued by Astrid's highly eccentric and fascinating nature. Jin turns to look back at his friend, thoroughly puzzled by the sudden remark. Richard gazes off into the distance as a quiet, heavy silence fills the greenhouse. Jin looks back with intense, unreadable gravity reflecting in his deep eyes. Richard softly breaks the silence to gently call out the commander's name. Jin snaps out of his deep daydream, politely asking Richard what they were discussing. Richard sits down, directly asking about the heavy thoughts consuming the commander's mind. Richard offers a warm, encouraging smile, noting that Jin's physical health is visibly improving. Jin looks away with a quiet smile, softly agreeing with his friend's observation. Jin silently marvels at Astrid's fierce determination to save his terminal life. Richard grows deeply concerned, starting to scold Jin for his fatalistic and weak attitude. Jin gently interrupts his friend, playfully noting he is well aware of the warning. Jin places a heavy burden on Ricard, naming him successor to lead their people. Jin openly confesses that he harbors absolutely no fear of his own inevitable death. The fading commander reveals that his only real fear is abandoning his beloved people. Back in her room, Astrid's pen scratches desperately in the quiet night. Astrid is gripped by absolute dread as the original timeline's fatal deadline approaches. She notes with heavy concern how desperately hard it is for him to breathe. A beautiful memory of the commander's gentle smile flashes through her mind. Heavy doubt quickly creeps in as Astrid questions the effectiveness of her treatments. Despair completely takes over, yet her resolve to save his life remains utterly unshakable. She stares at her drawings, realizing how deeply important he has truly become. Looking out into the starry night, she desperately searches for any medical alternative. A sudden wave of intense romantic feelings leaves the dedicated doctor completely flustered. Astrid quickly snaps out of her trance, refocusing entirely on her medical duty. Exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, she decides to finally call it a night. Sleep completely eludes her as her racing thoughts keep her wide awake. Astrid's overwhelming anxiety forces her to abandon all attempts at resting. Driven by pure concern, she decides to personally check on the commander's breathing. Astrid nervously approaches the grand chamber, wondering if the workaholic commander is asleep. She cautiously cracks open the door, hoping to steal a quick glance. Astrid quietly enters, but stops in surprise as she spots a sleeping boy. Astrid gasps in absolute panic, desperate not to make a single sound. The young caregiver Gede is fast asleep in his chair after an exhausting shift. Astrid carefully tiptoes past Gede, determined not to wake the resting caregiver. She quietly slips beside Jin's large canopy bed, kneeling silently in the dark. Astrid watches the fragile commander as he sleeps peacefully under the moonlight. Astrid breathes a sigh of relief, monitoring his slightly strained but steady breathing. Astrid leans her arms against the bed, completely captivated by his sleeping face. Astrid is deeply comforted to see her beloved commander resting so peacefully. She tenderly reaches out to brush a stray lock of hair from his forehead. Resting her head on her arms, Astrid whispers a quiet, heartfelt wish for his survival. She envisions a bright, beautiful future where everyone survives and smiles together. Satisfied that he is resting comfortably, Astrid prepares to slip back to her room. Suddenly, the sleeping commander stirs restlessly, breaking the peaceful silence. Before she can walk away, Jin's hand shoots out, firmly catching her wrist. Startled, Astrid halts her steps and looks back at the bed in pure surprise. The commander gasps in his sleep, his troubled breathing suddenly growing more labored. Jin holds onto her hand tightly, clinging to her like a lifeline in his nightmare. Astrid's heart pounds furiously as she looks down, whispering the sleeping commander's name. In a nail-biting twist of fate, the fragile commander suddenly stirs in his sleep, his deep eyes opening slightly as he mutters in a weak voice. Jin tightly grips Astrid's wrist, desperately questioning why she is going to such lengths for him. Astrid gazes down at him in soft silence, her lips parted as she prepares to answer his desperate question. Standing beside his bed, the determined doctor gently scolds him, asking why he would even doubt her resolve to save his life. She places her gloved hand over his, quietly repeating his name as a solemn promise of her devotion. With unwavering determination in her heart, Astrid vows that she will save him no matter what. Astrid stands tall, her heart swelling with an absolute unbreakable resolve to rewrite his tragic destiny. Looking down at the sleeping commander, she softly begs him not to give up on his own survival. The scene transitions to a medical checkup as Astrid holds her stethoscope against the commander's bare chest. Inside the lush, sunlit greenhouse, Astrid's eyes widen in absolute disbelief at the shocking results. She gasps in joy as Jin stands before her, his breathing dramatically improved and his health visibly restored. Chibi Richard gives a thumbs up as Astrid marvels at the miraculous effectiveness of her greenhouse strategy. Gently adjusting his collar, a handsome and healthy Jin teasingly notes how exceptionally cheerful his doctor looks today. A cute, chibi Astrid beams with immense pride, playfully wondering if her joy is really that obvious. Astrid credits his rapid recovery to him being such an obedient patient, asking if he is keeping up with his daily exercises. Framed by a breathtaking cascade of blue flowers, Jin smiles warmly, promising to follow his brilliant doctor's every command. Astrid blushingly swoons, internally screaming at how his returning health is making him dangerously handsome. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere of the greenhouse is interrupted by a sharp knock at the glass doors. A silver-haired Richard confidently leads the other executives into the conservatory, carrying important documents. Jin turns back to welcome them, wondering if it is already time for their scheduled executive meeting. Recognizing the importance of state affairs, Astrid politely excuses herself to give the leaders their space. The executives warmly bid Dr. Ober farewell, expressing their deep gratitude for her miraculous work. As she walks away, Astrid feels overwhelmed by their intense gazes, internally calling herself a lucky fraud. Stopping near the exit, Astrid pauses to take one final look back at the grand gathering. She gazes at the formal meeting, finding the handsome executives gathered around the table oddly charming and mismatched. Shaking off her silly thoughts, Astrid hastens her pace, eager to reach her brand-new medical examination room. The door opens to reveal a pristine, fully equipped private clinic prepared especially for her medical duties. Astrid sits at her new desk, resting her chin on her hands in pure bliss before a sudden knock startles her. A cheerful blonde-haired boy named Rodent bursts through the door, proudly announcing his arrival after visiting the others. Astrid kneels down to greet him, curiously asking if he wants to become an alchemist like the silver-haired Richard. Rodent quickly shakes his head in cute denial, signaling that alchemy is definitely not his dream. As Astrid wonders what his future holds, she remembers his original, heroic destiny to liberate the Empire. With a brilliant, heart-melting smile, the young boy joyfully declares he wants to become an amazing doctor just like her. Astrid is instantly struck by a wave of pure, overwhelming affection at his sweet declaration. She enthusiastically scoops Rodent up in a tight, loving embrace, completely charmed by how precious he is. But the joyful moment instantly shatters as a chilling thought strikes her. If she saves Jin, what happens to the timeline? Panic sets in as the heavy sound of frantic, rushing footsteps echoes down the hallway outside. The heavy wooden door is violently slammed open with a desperate cry for Dr. Ober. A sweating, pale Ged stands at the threshold, gasping for air as Astrid demands to know what is wrong. With wide, terror-filled eyes, the young caregiver desperately tries to find the words to explain the emergency. Getty frantically delivers the devastating news. The commander has suddenly stopped breathing and collapsed. Astrid bolts down the corridor in absolute panic, her mind racing as she questions how things could go wrong so suddenly. She bursts into the greenhouse to find Jin lying motionless on the floor, surrounded by shocked onlookers. Taking immediate charge, Astrid commands Richard to step back and lay the collapsed commander flat on the ground. Kneeling beside Jin, Astrid's heart drops to her stomach as she confirms the terrifying reality. He is not breathing. Summoning all her modern medical training, Astrid prepares her hands to administer emergency chest compressions. With intense focus, she forcefully presses down on his chest, counting the critical compressions out loud. As she pumps, a horrified Rickard looks on in agonizing guilt, deeply regretting his previous fatalistic thoughts. Astrid leans down without hesitation, performing urgent rescue breaths to force oxygen back into Jin's lungs. Her dread intensifies as she pulls back, realizing with horror that his chest isn't rising, meaning his airway is completely blocked. With the commander's airway completely blocked, the desperate doctor prioritizes aggressive chest compressions over rescue breaths, refusing to stop her life-saving efforts. Astrid briefly contemplates a terrifying emergency tracheotomy to clear his airway, but quickly rejects the dangerous medical procedure. As the tense scene unfolds, a nearby executive watches in absolute dread, wondering if the destined day of Jin's tragic death has finally arrived. Refusing to let the original timeline claim him, the determined doctor pours her entire soul into saving his life. Astrid screams out in her mind, desperately begging Jin not to die like this. Tears stream down her face as she strains against the mounting pressure, battling to pull him back from the brink of death. Her desperate prayers echo through the silent greenhouse as her hands continue to fight for his survival.
Suddenly, Jin's lifeless hand twitches on the cold stone floor, signaling a spark of returning life.
With a violent spasm, the commander suddenly coughs up a thick splash of black blood. Astrid and Richard watch in sheer horror as the dark, toxic fluids are finally expelled from his body. The pitch-black blood splatters violently across the floor, clearing his obstructed airway at last. Jin sits up weakly, coughing uncontrollably as the doctor rushes to support his trembling shoulders. Blood drips from his lips as he takes his first ragged, desperate gasp of fresh oxygen. Dr. Ober holds him close, anxiously checking if he is conscious and responsive. Jin weakly reaches up to tenderly brush away the tears streaming down his doctor's face. He manages a quiet gasp of relief, his purple eyes locked onto hers with profound gratitude. His remaining strength instantly evaporates, causing his head to slump forward in exhaustion. Jin collapses heavily against Richard's chest, muttering that he is fine while his friend desperately checks on him. Overwhelmed by sheer panic, the silver-haired executive suddenly explodes in furious anger over the terrifying scare. Richard fiercely scolds the weak patient while a bewildered Astrid tries to remind him that Jin literally just survived cardiac arrest. As his anger breaks, tears of pure relief begin to stream down the silver-haired man's face. Astrid watches in absolute stun, completely taken aback by the stoic executive's sudden emotional breakdown. The weight of nearly losing his leader finally crushes Richard's composure as he openly weeps. He grits his teeth in agonizing relief, crying silently as the terrifying crisis finally passes. A brief overview highlights the massive stakes, detailing how Richard holds the Empire's third highest bounty right behind Jin's first. Turning his tear-filled eyes toward the doctor, Richard quietly calls out to Dr. Ober. Without warning, the weeping executive pulls her into a tight, incredibly emotional embrace, sobbing his gratitude. Astrid's eyes widen in sheer shock, completely frozen by the silver-haired man's unexpected outburst of physical affection. Patting his back gently, she realizes the heavy burden of terror these people have been carrying this entire time.
Astrid stands entirely flustered, unsure how to react as the emotional executive continues to cling to her.
The other executives praise her as a divine savior, leaving the modest doctor desperately trying to downplay her modern medical knowledge. Surrounded by their overwhelming adoration, Astrid internally panics as the sheer pressure of her new reputation skyrockets. Watching the heartwarming scene, Jin smiles softly, deeply touched by his doctor's incredible dedication. Jin reflects on his brilliant new personal physician, fondly acknowledging Dr. Astrid Ober's unique presence in his life. He quietly muses on how exceptionally fascinating and charming she truly is. He recalls how she would often space out in deep, adorable thought while planning his treatments. He chuckles over her dramatic antics, remembering how she would suddenly flee the room in a flustered panic. Jin notes with amusement that she possesses absolutely no talent for hiding her highly expressive emotions. He could always read her feelings like an open book, finding her transparent reactions incredibly endearing. Even when she seemed completely at a loss, her dedication to his health never wavered. Unlike every other doctor who fled in terror, she stood her ground and faced him with unwavering resolve. Instead of fearing him, she treated him with a heartwarming, genuine fondness that captured his heart. Her radiant, beautiful smile in the greenhouse became a bright beacon of hope in his dark world. Captivated by her unique charm, Jin's intense curiosity quickly transformed into something much deeper. Before he even realized it, his gaze was constantly tracing her every move. He found himself completely absorbed in the beautiful, mysterious doctor who had suddenly entered his life. Surrounded by her warm presence, he was so happy that he temporarily forgot the dark reality of his terminal illness. He forgot the grim truth that his fragile life was nothing more than a flickering candle waiting to be extinguished. Jin vividly remembers the exact moment his body gave out, realizing with sudden dread that his final hour had arrived. As the darkness closed in, his final thoughts were a heartbreaking apology to Richard, leaving the fate of their underground city in his hands. Plunging into absolute darkness, Jin gasps for his final breath as he apologizes to everyone he is leaving behind. He laments drawing his allies into this dangerous struggle only to irresponsibly perish first. The fond faces of his devoted comrades flash before his failing eyes, filled with joy and hope. The serene greenhouse stands silent as the dying commander drifts further away from consciousness. Jin looks down in silent resignation, accepting that his time has finally run out. With his body fading, a desperate urge to remain in this world takes hold of his soul. His thoughts linger on an unsolved mystery that he desperately wishes to see through. In his fading mind, the beautiful image of Astrid appears as a glowing beacon of life. Reaching his trembling hand toward the light, he silently cries out his desire to live. A final, desperate plea echoes in his mind, refusing to succumb to the cold embrace of death. Through the void of his unconsciousness, a frantic voice screams for him to wake up. Astrid weeps over him, frantically asking if he is okay and begging him to show a sign of consciousness. A weak warmth begins to return to his fingers, signaling a miracle in the making. Jin slowly opens his eyes and gently touches her tear-stained cheek, whispering her name in gratitude. He stares in bewilderment, realizing his chest is actually rising and falling. Tears stream down Astrid's face as she looks back at him in sheer disbelief-filled relief. Astrid kneels on the floor, internally repeating the words about wanting to live and solving a mystery. Jin sits up on the cold floor, realizing that he has somehow survived his fatal collapse. A wave of dizziness washes over him as he struggles to comprehend his sudden revival. The commander blinks weakly, his senses slowly returning as his vision clears. As he leans against Richard's chest, Jin realizes he dares to be greedy for a life that could end at any second. Looking away, he reminds himself not to harbor useless hopes that could destroy him. Staring at the beautiful doctor, he resolves to withdraw his dangerous greed. He decides it is best to bury these newfound feelings deep within his heart. Jin tightly clenches his fist, steeling his resolve to suppress his emotions. Looking down at his gathered allies, he convinces himself that staying distant is best for everyone. The scene abruptly shifts to the royal palace as a messenger kneels in absolute terror. The trembling knight reports that Bruvan has been captured and its governor taken by the liberators. A powerful figure clad in imperial regalia stands silently absorbing the shocking news. A shocked noble exclaims in disbelief, wondering if the infamous Grey Lion has struck again. A gloved fist slams down in violent fury, shattering the tense silence of the throne room. The messenger tries to explain that the Emperor's vanguard was led directly into a trap. A chilling voice cuts through the panic, demanding the messenger repeat his words. An oppressive, blood-red aura floods the throne room as death hangs heavily in the air. The knight begins to speak of the underground city's emperor before a blade suddenly swings. The guard's helmet clatters to the floor as his lifeless body collapses backward. A blinding crimson flash reflects the sheer brutality of the ruler's wrath. Fresh blood splatters across the floor of the throne room, sealing the messenger's tragic fate. Salter Lenem III declares himself the sole supreme emperor, questioning why another who claims the title still lives. Emperor Salter Lenem III stands with a blood-drenched blade, wearing a sinister, arrogant smirk. He turns to his terrified court, chillingly asking his ministers if they agree with him. The ruthless blonde monarch stands tall, his eyes gleaming with deadly ambition. His dark, rhetorical question echoes through the silent chamber, freezing the blood of everyone present. Pointing his sword, he recalls a doctor who escaped from the underground city 3 months ago. That traitorous physician had claimed that Jin's fragile life was rapidly coming to an end. The report had assured him that the underground commander would not last more than a few months. A tense, foreboding energy settles over the royal court as the truth unravels. The emperor muses on how the supposedly dying commander managed to plan a successful occupation. The terrified ministers bow their heads in desperate compliance, fearing they will be the next to bleed. Touching his chin with a wicked grin, the emperor decides this is a minor matter that he will personally resolve. The ruthless blonde-haired emperor commands his forces with a chilling grin to investigate the recent military failure. His cold, bloodthirsty order to violently annihilate his enemies echoes through a dark void of shattered glass. The scene transitions to a quiet, dimly lit room as a voice suddenly calls out for Dr. Ober. Dr. Ober diligently checks her patient's vitals, urging him to rest while he questions her late-night shift. Jin smiles softly, teasing his dedicated physician about how her constant vigilance makes it impossible to sleep. She playfully offers to sing him a lullaby if it will help ease his mind. The commander pouts in a cute chibi moment, complaining that she treats him far too much like a child. Brushing off his complaints, she prepares to dim the lights while Jin advises her to get some sleep herself. Clutching her medical charts, Dr. Ober turns back with a look of sudden surprise. She looks closely at her patient, wondering if the exhausted commander has finally drifted off to sleep. Seeing his calm expression, a warm and tender smile spreads across the doctor's face. She gently places her hand on his forehead to make sure his fever is broken. Carefully pulling up his blanket, she confirms to herself that his breathing is completely stable. She watches him sleep peacefully, relieved that the terrifying crisis is finally over. Overcome by exhaustion from her grueling shift, the doctor rests her head on the bedside and falls fast asleep. The long, stressful night slowly passes as silence wraps around the castle. Jin wakes up to find his doctor sound asleep by his side, realizing she exhausted herself caring for him all night. He gazes softly at her peaceful sleeping face, deeply moved by her unwavering dedication. Suddenly, Dr. Ober jolts awake in a panic frenzy, realizing she fell asleep on the job. She looks around the room in embarrassment, shocked that she let her guard down in the commander's quarters. Sunlight streams through the large window, signaling that morning has already arrived. Her panic intensifies as she instantly shifts her focus back to her patient's fragile condition. A sudden shift in the atmosphere leaves her holding her breath as she leans in closer. Checking him closely, she lets out a breath of relief upon confirming that he is breathing steadily. Desperate for absolute certainty, she leans down to press her ear directly against his chest. Her eyes widen in pure shock as an alarmingly rapid and heavy heartbeat echoes through her ears. Terrified of another sudden collapse, she frantically shakes the commander to wake him. She desperately screams his name, begging him to open his eyes and show signs of life. Without warning, a firm hand shoots out and grabs her wrist, stopping her in her tracks. Jin slowly opens his eyes and grumbles, asking why she is waking him from such a peaceful sleep. Dr. Ober lunges forward in distress, frantically yelling that his heart rate is dangerously high. The commander tries to placate her, insisting that he is feeling perfectly fine. Unconvinced, the doctor furiously calls him a liar, refusing to accept his casual dismissals. She strictly orders him to sit up immediately so she can listen to his heartbeat again. Jin sighs and holds up a hand, desperately trying to get her to calm down.
In a cute chibi sequence, Jin slowly inhales to compose himself. He exhales a long, controlled breath in an attempt to stabilize his wild pulse.
He wonders to himself why his doctor's acting so incredibly flustered and intense today.
To ease her worries,
Jin pulls open his shirt and invites her to listen to his chest as much as she likes. She puts on her stethoscope, narrowing her eyes as she senses that something is deeply amiss. As she listens closely, the exceptionally rapid and intense beating of his heart continues to hammer away. Jin smiles confidently, reminding her that he feels healthy and urging her to stop worrying. She immediately records the abnormal pulse in her medical chart, noting that the cause remains entirely a mystery. Later that afternoon, the scene shifts to the serene and sunlit greenhouse. Dr. Ober walks through the garden accompanied by a cheerful blonde-haired boy carrying Jin's daily medicine. Jin looks up from his desk, surprised to realize it is already time for his treatment. The adorable little boy smiles brightly, eager to help his respected commander. Dr. Ober chuckles at the child's infectious energy, momentarily forgetting her heavy worries. She quickly excuses herself to fetch a glass of water for the commander's medicine. As she carefully pours the water, she anxiously wonders if Jin's mysterious rapid heartbeat will return to threaten his fragile life once more. A sudden shout shatters the quiet sanctuary of the greenhouse, pulling Dr. Ober out of her deep worries. A cheerful blonde-haired boy stands before her, smiling extremely brightly. The young child holds out a beautiful handmade wreath woven from strawberries. Placing the strawberry crown gently onto her head, the adorable boy happily thanks the brown-haired doctor. Eager to see her reaction, he excitedly asks her how she likes his special handmade creation. Dr. Ober smiles warmly as she adjusts the crown, delightfully praising its absolute beauty. Suddenly, both of them freeze in sheer bewilderment as they notice a strange presence nearby. Spotting the dark-haired commander standing silent, the concerned doctor immediately asks if he is feeling all right. Jin stands frozen with a massive blush on his face, completely caught off guard as blood begins to drip from his nose. Desperately trying to hide his intense embarrassment, the flustered commander wipes his nose and insists that he is perfectly fine. The sudden and bizarre reaction leaves the doctor and the boy utterly panicked about their commander's strange condition. Later, a familiar voice calls out from the doorway announcing their arrival into Jin's private greenhouse office. Richard steps inside holding a thick report, immediately asking Jin if he has fully recovered from his recent collapse. Seeing the commander's dark, brooding face, a panicked Richard hilariously screams, demanding to know if he is suffering from even more deadly symptoms. Resting his chin solemnly on his hands, Jin looks up with a deadpan expression to announce that they are facing a severe crisis. Struck by the sudden gravity of the commander's dark tone, the white-haired warrior gasps in absolute shock. Cheapy Richard frantically guesses if their secret location has been compromised or if they have run out of supplies, but Jin quickly dismisses his wild theories. Jin gazes downward, his eyes filled with a deep and quiet melancholy. Richard narrows his eyes, demanding that the commander clearly explain what is truly weighing on his mind. With absolute vulnerability, Jin quietly confesses that he is terrified of his impending death. Clutching his hands tightly together, he admits there is someone he desperately wishes to stay alive for. A heavy emotional silence settles over the room as Jin suppresses his fear. Turning away, a deeply shaken Jin begs his trusted ally for advice, reiterating just how terrified he is of dying. Richard tightly clenches his gloved fist in deep frustration. The silver-haired warrior questions if Jin had simply been waiting and wanting to die up until this very moment. Angered by his friend's past carelessness, Richard raises his voice in a passionate emotional outburst. Jin looks up with a weary smile, explaining that it was simply a matter of having no fear of death back then. Richard falls silent, absorbing the bittersweet truth that his commander never valued his own life until now. Shaking off the heavy mood, Richard suddenly lets out a cheerful roar, celebrating Jin's new desire to live as a brilliant change. Jin smiles softly, quietly agreeing that finding a reason to survive is indeed a wonderful blessing. The commander's deep blue eyes reflect the silent, lingering dread of his fragile health failing him again. Without warning, Richard steps forward and delivers a sharp, playful flick right to the commander's forehead. Leaning in close, the silver-haired warrior firmly tells Jin that his real problem is overthinking absolutely everything. Clutching his smarting forehead, the annoyed commander listens as Richard tells him to simply celebrate being alive right now. Richard playfully shifts the subject, loudly praising Dr. Ober as a genius physician who managed to completely heal Jin's heart. The sudden mention of the beautiful doctor sends Jin's heart racing, causing his face to erupt into a massive sweating blush. Panicking at the commander's sudden crimson face, Richard screams that he is going to fetch Dr. Ober while Jin desperately protests. Lunging across the desk, Jin firmly grabs his friend's wrist and frantically insists that he is perfectly fine. Richard fiercely argues that the commander's fever is dangerously high, but Jin firmly calls out his name to halt him. With a gentle glowing warmth blooming in his heart, Jin internally confesses his true feelings of love for the doctor. Overcome by the raw intensity of his newly realized love, the blushing commander buries his face in his hand. Richard stands completely frozen in absolute disbelief, his eyes wide as his papers slip from his hands. The critical documents flutter silently onto the cold stone floor. A fountain pen scratches across aged parchment as a secret diary records the events of the last 3 months. Working late at her desk, Dr. Ober writes in her journal expressing her immense relief that Jin has successfully cheated his tragic destiny.
Her written thoughts darken as she recalls how her joy was shattered by the sudden return of Jin's abnormal physical symptoms. She notes down how the commander's sudden, dramatic nosebleed and subsequent collapse sent shockwaves of terror through all of his loyal allies. A heavy wave of anxiety and dread fills the quiet chamber.
Resting her chin on her hand, the concerned doctor records her growing panic that Jin's worsening heart palpitations mean his fate is sealed.
Touching the diary page with a trembling hand, she writes a desperate, heartfelt plea for the man she loves to stop scaring her. Just when peace seems to settle in, a sudden, heart-wrenching emergency threatens to shatter the quiet sanctuary of Dr. Ober's private study.
Her quiet moment is instantly shattered as a panicked voice warns her of incoming wounded soldiers, forcing the brown-haired doctor to jolt awake in pure shock.
Without wasting a second, she directs the frantic crowd into her clinic to begin emergency triage.
Although bloodied and battered, the incoming soldiers carry no immediately fatal wounds, bringing a brief moment of relief to the chaotic clinic. Richard urges her to prioritize a soldier with a severely torn arm, and the doctor quickly orders them to lay him down.
Determined to halt the heavy bleeding, she relies on her past sewing skills to muster the courage for a crucial medical suture. After intense focus and delicate precision, the brown-haired doctor successfully completes the treatment with a sigh of relief. The fragile piece is instantly broken by a frantic cry revealing that Richard is also severely injured. The stoic, silver-haired warrior looks on with a grim expression, trying to mask his physical pain. Despite bleeding heavily from his head, the stubborn warrior insists he is perfectly fine, ignoring his own open wounds. Refusing to be a burden, Richard turns to leave the clinic despite his bleeding head injury. Stopping him in his tracks, the doctor firmly grabs his arm and reminds him that his recklessness will only worry Commander Jin. The sudden tension of the moment leaves her breathless as she stares up at him with wide, intense eyes. A tight, unwavering grip seals their unspoken connection in the dimly lit clinic. Reluctantly giving in, Richard agrees to a quick, rough patch-up, much to the doctor's absolute delight. As surgical tools are prepared, the heavy silence is filled with the grim confirmation of a brutal battle. As she begins to treat him, she asks him to show at least some willingness to cooperate with his recovery. The doctor recalls how the silver-haired warrior has been strangely avoiding her for days despite their past closeness. She gently applies a cotton swab to his wound, pleading with him to speak up if she has somehow upset him. Her close proximity sends a sudden, intense heat rushing to the silver-haired warrior's cheeks as he stays silent. She looks at him with deep concern, wondering if her treatment is only causing him more pain. He softly calls her name, breaking the heavy silence and catching her completely off guard. In a cute chibi sequence, he stammers out a question about her intense gaze, sending them both into a flustered panic. Overwhelmed by the sudden closeness, the flustered doctor quickly backs away with a red face, stammering an apology. Quickly gathering herself, she stands up abruptly and announces that his treatment is officially complete. Terrified of her own racing heart, she frantically bolts out of the room to check on other wounded soldiers. Left alone, the silver-haired warrior stares at his empty, trembling hand as a strange warmth lingers on his skin. Clutching his burning face, Richard is completely overwhelmed by the blossoming realization of his feelings. Walking down the quiet corridor, the warrior desperately commands himself to snap out of his daze as his mind wanders back to her. The image of her radiant, warm smile flashes vividly in his mind, threatening to break his iron composure. He suddenly remembers Jin's deep, blushing confession, forcing him to confront a painful reality. He reflects on the weight of the commander's vulnerability, realizing the high stakes of this complicated love triangle. Staring out at the quiet greenhouse, he tries to convince himself that he has no right to feel this agonizing jealousy. He resolves to bury his newly discovered feelings deep down, knowing he must protect his friendship with Jin. He decides that the only path forward is to completely avoid Dr. Ober, hoping the distance will cure his racing heart. Seeking a distraction, Richard steps into the private greenhouse office to deliver his mission report. He is greeted by the bizarre sight of Jin reading a book upside down in an incredibly relaxed position. Richard's sweat drops in disbelief, wondering if this absurd reading posture is actually proof of the commander's recovered health. Shaking off his astonishment, the silver-haired warrior confirms that all of their allies made it back alive. However, a heavy, somber shadow quickly falls over the silver-haired warrior's face, signaling a grim turn of events. Dropping to his knees in deep shame, Richard delivers a devastating apology to his commander. The shock of the unexpected apology causes the dark-haired commander to instantly lose his composure. Bolt upright, Jin demands to know why their crucial mission failed so catastrophically. Clenching his fists, the devastated Richard explains that his flawless strategic calculations were completely upended. Jin's eyes widen in absolute horror as he learns that a shadowy, malicious faction has beaten them to their goal. A terrifying revelation unveils the Black Spider, a deadly rogue faction that stands as a dangerous rival to both the Empire and the Rebellion. Driven by pure greed and power, this sinister group seeks to hoard the Empire's vast wealth entirely for themselves. Their selfish ambitions put them on a direct, bloody collision course with the liberators who fight for true freedom. Richard reveals that they walked straight into a lethal trap with the ruthless Black Spider waiting in ambush. A chilling dread settles over Jin as he realizes that a traitor may be pulling the strings behind this deadly ambush. Just when they thought the danger had passed, a terrifying chill grips Richard as he spots his commander. Stepping closer, the silver-haired warrior asks Jin if he is feeling all right. Suddenly, Jin collapses onto his knees, choking back a violent, agonizing fit. Richard rushes forward in a panic as Jin gasps that his head feels like it is splitting open. A dark, oppressive blackout suddenly descends, threatening to swallow the room. Desperate and trembling, Richard screams for someone to fetch the doctor immediately. Shifting to a peaceful memory, Rick stands proudly in his assistant uniform. Looking up from her work, Dr. Ober stares at him in surprise. Rick cutely asks if there is any medical task he can assist with. Finding him absolutely adorable, she happily promises him a very special task. She asks if he can synthesize a numbing medicine to block pain. Rick looks stunned, but confidently confirms that such a treatment is possible. A wave of sudden panic and realization flashes across the doctor's face. She frantically clarifies that she only needs the medicine for critical treatment. Her peaceful recollection is suddenly shattered by a loud echoing bang. Finn bursts through the door in a panic, calling for her. Dr. Ober sprints down the hallway, wondering why Jin's health suddenly failed. She arrives to find Jin bent double, choking back a severe cough. Thick, crimson blood stains his lips as he struggles to breathe. Staring in horror, she realizes Jin has never looked so utterly terrified. Forcing her panic aside, the doctor prepares a vital dose of medicine. She recalls preparing the sedative with Rick beforehand to keep Jin stable. Heavy, ragged breaths echo through the sunlit room as tension peaks. Leaning over the suffering commander, she gently checks on his condition. Hugging his trembling body, Jin looks completely broken and vulnerable. Though she lacks formal training, she instantly recognizes the true danger. Kneeling beside him, she cradles his face to offer her warmth. She diagnoses his physical collapse as a trigger of deep psychological trauma. Watching from afar, Richard quietly prays for his commander's swift recovery. Dr. Ober wraps the dark-haired commander in a warm protective embrace. She instructs Finn to fetch the prepared sedative bottle from the shelf. Peace finally returns as Jin quietly drifts off to sleep. Shifting focus, the doctor demands to know what happened during the mission. She explains she cannot help without knowing what triggered the collapse. A heavy silence fills the room as she awaits his painful explanation. Trembling with guilt, Richard admits he made a catastrophic mistake. She watches in shock, wondering why Richard is also so fragile. The mention of a painful, unhealed wound hangs heavily between them. Richard admits he wrongfully assumed everything would be perfectly fine. She realizes Richard accidentally triggered Jin's dormant childhood trauma. She directly asks if he intentionally brought up that painful memory. Looking away in pure sorrow, the silver-haired warrior softly denies it. Reaching out, Dr. Ober gently places her hand over his to comfort him. She tells him his self-reproach will only make Jin suffer more. Privately, she laments how little she knows about their mysterious past. She urges the injured warrior to prioritize his own physical recovery. She hesitates, wondering if he would welcome her comfort after avoiding her. Richard remains completely silent, a picture of absolute grief and shame. Deciding to throw caution to the wind, she suddenly cups his face. Holding him close, she gently whispers that everything will be okay. Determined to protect her allies, Dr. Astrid Ober firmly orders her stubborn patient to prioritize his recovery. Her medical authority sends a sudden warmth rushing to the silver-haired warrior's face. Reluctantly complying, Richard tries to hide his embarrassment with a shy, tentative smile. Suddenly, a terrifying nightmare plunges Astrid back into a dark, blood-drenched chamber of horrors. In the dream, she desperately begs the dying dark-haired commander to remain conscious. Tears stream down her face as she pleads with him not to abandon her. Fading fast, the dying commander weakly whispers her name in his final moments. Stained with blood, Jin gently reassures her that his tragic fate is not her fault. He softly expresses his wish that she will not carry the heavy burden of grief. Offering one last bittersweet smile, he asks her to find peace. The tragic vision slowly dissolves into a solemn, quiet darkness. The oppressive weight of the nightmare begins to fracture and fade. With the final desperate plea, she begs him not to leave her behind. Astrid bolts upright in her bed, screaming in absolute terror as the dream ends. Gasping for breath, she realizes with dread that this recurring nightmare is haunting her again. She reflects on how her growing feelings for Jin are triggering these dark anxieties. Brushing her fears aside, she finds solace in the fact that it was merely a dream. She resolved that as long as Jin is safe and breathing, she's content. Dressed in an elegant blue gown, she carries a solemn expression of determination. She steps out into the quiet, pristine halls of the estate. As she walks, she worries about the heavy burden of the original Astrid's memories. The realization that she is not the true woman Jin loved leaves her feeling profoundly isolated. Refusing to wallow in self-pity, Astrid quickly pumps herself up to face the day. She recalls how she aggressively fussed over Richard's recovery just days prior. She focuses on her next vital medical goal, getting the commander outside for sunlight. Astrid slides open the door to check on the recovering commander. She finds Jin resting peacefully in a sunlit greenhouse bed surrounded by lush greenery. The dark-haired commander looks up with a warm, gentle greeting upon her arrival. With a cheerful smile, the doctor prepares to check his temperature first. Though lacking stamina, Jin diligently cooperates while she notes his stubborn morning routine. Jin eagerly asks if his health has finally returned to normal. Astrid freezes in alarm as she reads the elevated temperature on the thermometer. He nervously tries to laugh it off, hoping the reading is just normal variation. Dr. Ober immediately notes down the concerning symptom on her medical chart. Sensing her disapproval, Jin urgently protests before she can order him back to bed. He desperately insists that he feels perfectly fine and has looked forward to this day. The protective doctor remains deeply concerned about the risk of him catching a cold. Jin humorously points out that catching a cold in the peak of summer is highly unlikely.
Stepping closer, the vulnerable commander tightly clutches her sleeve to plead his case. He earnestly promises to follow all of her medical instructions perfectly. Jin looks up at her with an irresistible, wide-eyed look of pure innocence. Overwhelmed by his sheer cuteness, the flustered doctor struggles to maintain her professional composure. She fondly recalls how much his attitude toward medical treatment has softened over time. Relenting to his charms, Astrid warmly agrees to let him go out if he dresses warmly. Satisfied, Jin agrees but demands that she finish her breakfast in return. The two happily seal their deal with a cute mutual promise. The commander's breakfast begins with a serving of wholesome, freshly sliced light rye bread. Next is a warm bowl of nutrient-rich vegetable soup loaded with dietary fiber.
The tall glass of vitamin-packed fruit juice completes the healthy, healing meal.
With a racing heart, Astrid silently prays that this peaceful, warm daily routine will last forever. Tensions rise as the dark-haired commander quietly eats his breakfast without saying a word, leaving the doctor highly observant of his uncharacteristic silence. The clean, empty bowl proves that Jin successfully finished his entire meal. The brown-haired doctor enthusiastically cheers and gives a double thumbs up to praise Jin's excellent appetite. A sudden knock on the greenhouse door signals the arrival of their silver-haired ally, Richard. Richard enters the room holding the little blonde boy's hand while inquiring about Jin's current health condition. The brown-haired doctor reveals that Jin had only coughed a little bit earlier. Concerned for his commander, the silver-haired warrior suggests it might be safer to remain indoors. Astrid argues that getting a little fresh air is far better than staying locked underground. A heavy, contemplative silence falls over the dark-haired commander as he listens to them. Noticing his sudden shift in mood, the group looks back at the quiet commander in concern. The dark-haired commander silently questions why everyone is suddenly staring at him with such intense worry. A nervous sweat breaks across Richard's face as he tries to maintain a warm, gentle smile. Jin grips his clothes tightly, suppressing the inner turmoil he refuses to show his friends. He quickly brushes off their concerns, insisting that nothing is wrong. Leaning in close, the doctor playfully asks if he is simply worried about losing his outdoor privileges. Astrid warmly reassures Jin that she will honor her promise since he successfully finished his breakfast. She laughs lightheartedly, teasing the stoic commander for acting so childish about going outside. Turning to the little blonde boy, she enthusiastically asks if he is excited for the outing too. The blonde child cheers with pure joy, flashing a bright, heartwarming smile. Jin laughs alongside Astrid, who happily notes how perfectly suited the two of them are. With their plans finalized, the group's cheerful agreement echoes through the sunlit greenhouse. A soft white shoe takes a gentle first step onto the lush green grass outside. A breathtakingly beautiful lake surrounded by towering pine trees stretches out before them. Inhaling the crisp morning air, Astrid happily exclaims how incredibly refreshing the open outdoors feel. The blonde boy gasps in amazement at the massive lake and immediately sprints ahead. Astrid frantically warns the hyperactive child to slow down before he accidentally trips and falls. Walking behind them, Jin calmly suggests that they should take their time as well. Richard walks beside him with a peaceful, contented expression, enjoying the tranquil scenery. The dark-haired commander quietly observes his silver-haired companion, his gaze filled with unspoken thoughts. The blonde boy wraps his arms around the doctor in a joyful, affectionate embrace. Out of sight, Jin's hand begins to tremble violently, betraying his failing physical condition. Realizing he missed a comment, Richard turns back and asks Jin to repeat himself. Jin demands to know when Richard's feelings changed, leaving the silver-haired warrior completely bewildered. The two men walk side by side on the grassy path, a subtle tension building between them. Richard demands a clearer explanation, but the dark-haired commander simply offers a bittersweet smile. Waving off the heavy question, Jin walks ahead while claiming it was nothing of importance. The peaceful landscape belies the lingering emotional distance separating the two lifetime companions. Suddenly, Jin playfully pulls Richard close to dismiss his questions with a lighthearted gesture. Richard stands stunned as Jin's internal thoughts acknowledge his companion's unwavering loyalty and friendship. The commander silently laments how different they truly are, burdened by his own dark secrets. Jin watches his two dearest allies interact, his mind filled with a bittersweet appreciation for them. Regret washes over the commander as he silently apologizes for taking his frustrations out on them. A sudden, agonizing fit of coughing racks Jin's body, forcing a panicked Richard to catch him. Realizing something has gone terribly wrong, Astrid and the blonde boy sprint back up the hill. Absolute terror grips the doctor as she realizes Jin's fragile health has collapsed once again. Forcing a weak smile, Jin insists he is fine and suggests they head back inside. The commander softly apologizes for ruining her rare opportunity to enjoy the beautiful outdoor weather. Though deeply saddened, Astrid offers a gentle, understanding smile to comfort her struggling patient. Astrid promises that they will simply come back out together tomorrow to enjoy the sunshine. Surrounded by the endless green meadow, a fragile hope lingers as they resolve to try again tomorrow. A massive imperial crisis erupts as the furious blonde-haired emperor demands his trembling messenger repeat the shocking report from his throne. Slamming his black-gloved fist down in a violent rage, the blonde emperor demands to know what happened next. The terrified kneeling messenger reveals that the entire family of the Masquin Duke has been brutally slaughtered by an enraged mob. Sitting in grim silence, a dark shadow of absolute malice washes over the blonde emperor's face as he processes the devastating loss of his maternal allies. Blood splatters violently across the pristine palace walls to the sound of agony.
The Emperor's murderous thoughts echo in fury at the sheer audacity of those who dared to attack the imperial family. Leaning heavily on his bloodstained sword, the dark-faced blonde Emperor laments that his chief rival is still breathing. A bowing, brown-haired subordinate sweats in fear as the Emperor demands to know how a dying man is still surviving.
Stepping onto the bloodied red carpet, the subordinate reports that a mysterious woman recently vanished from the capital's prison.
Sitting back on his throne, the blonde Emperor demands to know the identity of this mysterious female fugitive. A system-like record reveals her as Astrid Ober, an unlicensed medical practitioner from Alb Street. The subordinate explains that this very woman has somehow become Jin's personal physician. Shocking rumors circulate that she managed to miraculously revive Jin after his heart had completely stopped. A sinister, mocking grin spreads across the blonde Emperor's face as he dismisses her as a mere quack. The bowing subordinates remain tense as the Emperor bursts into mocking laughter at the seemingly ridiculous rumors. Deciding it is worth investigating, the ruthless ruler orders a wanted notice to be issued immediately. Intrigued by the challenge, the Emperor commands his men to capture her alive.
He casually proposes an astronomical bounty to motivate his forces.
With a greedy, mocking smile, the blonde Emperor places his gloved hands together to set his deadly trap. The bowing subordinates gasp in sheer disbelief at the massive 3 million lumen bounty, matching the prize on the legendary Grey Lion. The scheming Emperor expects nothing less than absolute success from his elite forces. Sitting with his legs crossed, the ruthless ruler rests in anticipation of his new prey. Meanwhile, unaware of the looming threat, the dark-haired Commander Jin prepares to leave by putting on his dark coat. Looking around, the brown-haired Dr. Astrid notices Richard's absence, but Jin reassures her that the warrior is away on a crucial mission. Astrid panics over their lack of protection, but Jin reveals that a trusted ally from outside the underground city will guard them. Astrid and the blonde boy turn around in surprise as the door swings open. A tall, red-brown-haired man wearing a dark vest enters with an easygoing, confident smile. The newcomer sniffs his vest, playfully asking if he still reeks of alcohol from his travels. Astrid gasps in sudden realization, recognizing him from Jin's past. The red, brown-haired man complains about having to babysit a child when Jin can barely look after his own health. Angry at his dismissive attitude, Astrid defensively shields the blonde child. Glaring coldly, Jin firmly warns his ally to watch his mouth because the boy is a deeply cherished friend. Deeply moved, the blonde boy blushes with starry, sparkling eyes at the commander's defense. The red, brown-haired man quickly shrugs off the tension and suggests they head out. Hugging the child, Astrid beams with joy, absolutely thrilled that Jin defended the young boy so warmly. Walking through the grassy fields, Astrid curiously asks if their new companion is actually a merchant. Sitting beneath a lush tree, Jin confirms that his ally secretly runs a powerful merchant guild to hide his true identity. Jin explains that with Richard away, they borrowed the guild leader's personal help to ensure their safety. Astrid smiles happily, completely amazed by Jin's uncanny ability to read her mind. She watches with slight concern as the sly merchant playfully pats the blonde child's head. Returning to the estate, Jin warmly bids Astrid goodnight and urges his dedicated doctor to rest. Suddenly, frantic footsteps echo through the hallway as a panicked voice screams Jin's name. A bruised, sweat-drenched Rickard bursts in to report that the raid on the Mosquin Duke's estate succeeded, but things went terribly wrong. Panic strikes Astrid as she recalls that in the original novel, the Duke's family was the first faction target. Richard solemnly explains that the furious citizens beat the noble family to death before the rebels could even intervene to save them. Astrid trembles as she realizes the terrifying timeline of the original novel is unfolding exactly as written. Jin coldly declares that the corrupt nobles simply reaped what they sowed, shocking Astrid with his uncharacteristic cruelty. Richard warns Jin that this slaughter will push the vengeful emperor to stop at nothing to hunt them down. Clutching his wounded shoulder, the silver-haired warrior tries to process the immense threat heading their way. With the Emperor's gaze now firmly fixed on them, a deadly storm of blood and war is about to push their fragile survival to the absolute limit. A stunning revelation shatters the peaceful morning as Astrid discovers the Empire has completely exposed her secret existence. A cold shiver runs down her spine upon seeing the colossal 3 million lumen bounty placed on her head. Paralyzed by pure dread, her eyes widen in horror as she stares directly at her own execution order. Astrid erupts into a state of hysterical panic, completely unable to process her new life as a wanted criminal. A dark memory reveals her late father, a greedy physician whose wealth shielded her from the harsh realities of life. Inheriting his fortune, Astrid chose a different path, selflessly feeding and clothing the forgotten children of the streets. Realizing the bounty is 6 times her father's massive legacy, the absolute gravity of her danger sets in. Far from her panic, a drop of fresh blood runs down Jin's pale neck as his silent struggle worsens. Seeing her frantic state, the dark-haired commander playfully teases Astrid about her sudden rise to legendary fame. Richard turns incredibly flustered as the group jokes about Astrid matching his own notorious imperial bounty. A comforting hand gently rests on Astrid's shoulder, instantly cutting through the noise of her rising panic. Standing tall beside his trusted warrior, Jin firmly vows that they will shield her from any imperial threat. Astrid blushes warmly, deeply moved by the fierce, protective loyalty of her dangerous companions. Even in a state of high tension, she cannot help but find Jin's protective declarations incredibly endearing. The heavy atmosphere clears momentarily as a peaceful, bright sky frames the quiet estate. Looking out of the sprawling city, the constant threat of the bounty looms over her thoughts like a dark cloud.
Determined to stay focused, the brown-haired doctor walks down the quiet, patterned hallway of the estate.
Reaching for the handle, she happily plans to join Jin for a walk, only to stop in surprise.
Puzzled, Astrid finds the small blonde child sitting in silence, looking unusually small and dejected. The young boy quietly admits that his stomach has been in painful knots since breakfast. Slipping into doctor mode, Astrid quickly moves to prepare some soothing medicine for the child's indigestion. She gently instructs the boy to finish the remedy while preparing to check his hands for a pulse. Standing behind his chair, she watches with growing concern as the usually hyperactive boy remains completely listless. Gently crouching down, she coaxes him to reveal if his sickness is purely physical or if something is bothering him.
A heavy silence fills the air as the boy remembers the hurtful remarks made by the visiting guild leader. Astrid's expression hardens with annoyance upon realizing the newcomer's words deeply wounded the child's fragile feelings.
Slumping in his chair, the boy tearfully admits his constant fear of being a useless burden to those around him. Guilt racks Astrid's mind as she deeply regrets not putting the arrogant merchant in his place yesterday. Kneeling before him, she wraps her arms around the child, warmly emphasizing just how much she truly loves him. She conjures a vivid memory of Jin's stern defense, reminding the boy of the commander's fierce loyalty. Crying tears of overwhelming relief, the boy realizes that he is genuinely a precious companion to them both. With a gentle smile, Astrid urges him to forget the cruel remarks and look forward. Instantly, a bright burst of energy fills the room as the boy declares his stomach ache is entirely gone. Flexing his small arms with newfound determination, the boy proudly boasts of his miraculous and sudden recovery. Sweat dropping at his dramatic change, Astrid smiles as the boy enthusiastically vows to become a great doctor just like her. Deep in thought, a sudden shadow of grim reality crosses her face as she contemplates his innocence. Astrid quietly admits to herself that there are still far too many tragic illnesses she cannot cure. A painful memory flashes of a suffering Jin struggling to stay upright on the grassy, sunlit hill.
Snapping back to reality, her eyes narrow with intense determination to protect those under her care.
Inspired by her strength, the blonde child proudly declares his dream to build a world entirely free of pain.
Overcome with pure affection, Astrid sweeps the sweet boy into a tight, warm hug.
She enthusiastically showers him with praise, labeling him the true hero destined to save their lives. The boy's triumphant smile instantly shatters into comical shock as Astrid cancels their planned outdoor stroll.
Hands on her hips, she firmly lectures the protesting boy about the absolute importance of proper rest.
Conceding defeat, the child trudges away while Astrid shouts a final reminder to always chew his food.
Watching him leave, she notes with a fond smile how surprisingly mature the boy can be compared to Jin.
Preparing to head to Jin's quarters, a sudden, terrifying premonition of his physical collapse flashes in her mind.
Clutching her arm, Astrid shivers as the lingering nightmare of his fragile, failing health returns to haunt her.
An oppressive, dark shadow sweeps over the scene, underscoring the lethal stakes of Jin's terminal condition. Stealing her resolve, Astrid swings the door open and steps into the commander's room to face the silent storm ahead. Just when Astrid steps in, the dark-haired Commander Jin greets his wanted doctor with a playful, teasing smile. Astrid blushes deeply, instantly recognizing his playful attempt to lighten her heavy mood. Checking his vitals, a miraculous normal temperature reading brings a sudden wave of relief. In his room, Astrid happily notes his improved health while Jin credits his restful night. The scene shifts as the lingering dread of her impossible dreams momentarily fades away. Taking a scenic stroll on the grassy hills, Astrid warmly praises Jin's visibly healthy condition.
Richard agrees that the commander looks far better, though Jin remains characteristically silent.
Suddenly, an eerie stillness settles over the vibrant forest, signaling an approaching storm. The haunting silence deepens as even the local birds stop their singing in fear. A mysterious black heel cuts through the grass, stepping directly into their path. Sensing an overwhelming deadly presence, Jin and Reinhardt freeze in sheer shock. A pale woman with a striking black neck tattoo smiles, recognizing the silver-haired warrior. Recognizing her sinister mark, Richard and Astrid gasp in absolute horror at her arrival.
Terrified out of his mind, Jin trembles as the woman delivers a chilling greeting. Revealing her dark beauty, the white-haired stranger mockingly questions their long separation.
Shockingly, she is revealed to be Arachne, the legendary ruthless leader of the Black Spider. With a venomous, alluring smile, the deadly assassin locks her eyes onto her prey. Sweating profusely, a paralyzed Jin demands to know why she has returned. Terrified by Jin's sudden hyperventilation, Astrid desperately begs the commander to breathe. Astrid watches in panic as Jin suffers a violent blood-spinning physical breakdown. Deeply unsettled, Astrid realizes a haunting truth is staring them right in the face. Looking closely at their striking features, she realizes Jin and Arachne look chillingly identical.
A heavy, suspenseful transition prepares the group for a truth that will change everything.
Astrid's mind races as she tries to comprehend the dangerous connection between them. Astrid shields the trembling commander while Arachne watches them with cold amusement. Instantly, a furious Richard draws his weapon, aiming directly at the lethal intruder. Staring down the barrel of his revolver, Richard stands ready to eliminate the threat. Arachne casually laughs off the lethal threat, completely unfazed by their hostility. Astrid glares with growing determination, unwilling to let this monster hurt her patient. With cruel precision, Arachne mockingly points out that Jin's terminal health will kill him anyway. Disregarding the cruel remarks, Astrid wraps her arms around Jin to anchor his failing consciousness.
Jin slowly looks up at his dedicated doctor, deeply touched by her unwavering support.
Stealing his fading resolve, Jin fiercely promises that he will not die as she desires. Smiling mockingly, Arachne bids them a casual farewell, leaving as suddenly as she arrived. With a blinding flash, the deadly leader vanishes, leaving a lingering trail of questions behind. The scene shifts back to the city as a shocking revelation echoes in Astrid's mind.
Astrid stands utterly paralyzed by the mind-blowing truth that Jin is Arachne's biological son.
Flashbacks of Richard's warnings return, connecting Jin's deepest trauma to his sinister mother.
Astrid wonders what horrific history could drive a son to such terrifying physical panic.
Suddenly, a massive violent rumble shakes the very foundation of the city. Panic flares as Astrid screams in terror, believing an earthquake has struck them. Placing a hand on his chest, Richard sheepishly apologizes for not warning her about the noise.
Jin calmly explains that they are intentionally collapsing the exposed underground lake passages. Astrid realizes the collapse was necessary to keep the deadly Black Spider Guild from attacking them. Guilt-stricken, Astrid tightly clutches her hands and apologizes for insisting on taking a walk.
Jin and Richard immediately reassure her, calling her their greatest savior and benefactor.
Gently patting her head, Jin warmly tells her there is absolutely no need to apologize.
Though comforted, Astrid cannot shake the terrifying memory of the sinister woman they just faced. Sensing her lingering distress, both Jin and Richard look at her with deep concern. The two warriors exchange a quiet, meaningful glance, silently vowing to protect her at all costs.
The chilling truth takes shape as Arachne wears a dark, cruel smirk.
A heavy darkness sweeps across his memory, swirling with painful gravity. Violent memories of his tragic childhood echo through the cold, empty room. In his flashback, the young, dark-haired Jin weeps bitterly as his mother screams at him to look away. The cruel woman venomously demands her son stop looking at her with his father's eyes. Shattering glass and harsh rejections reinforce the young boy's deepest childhood traumas. Born into a cycle of hatred, the boy grew up swearing to deny his unseen father. The tragic encounter begins when mysterious hooded figures drag a dark-haired man before the cold leader. Trembling in sheer terror on the wooden floor, Yin desperately recognizes his captor, Arachne. With a wicked, alluring smile, Arachne mockingly greets the long-lost Yemi and Lauren. Pathetically pleading for mercy, the captive man desperately claims he once loved her. Arachne bursts into hysterical, maniacal laughter, utterly disgusted by his empty words of affection. Furious resentment boils over as she recalls how his betrayal ruined her youth. Lightly touching her sharp dagger, Arachne smugly boasts about tracking him down despite his noble escape. Flanked by her ruthless subordinates, she declares her ultimate plan to use his death to gain absolute power. A swirling void of malice highlights her sinister motivation to exact ultimate vengeance. With sickening cruelty, Arachne mockingly offers him a chance to say a final farewell to his son. Hidden in the dark, the young, dark-haired Jin listens in absolute horror as the terrible truth dawns on him. Terrified and sweating, Yin is cornered as a cold blade is brandished before his face. An ominous silence falls as the victim realizes his grim, unavoidable fate. Young Jin gasps in terror as the ruthless leader prepares to strike the final fatal blow. Covering his ears to block the agonizing screams, the helpless boy is trapped in a crimson nightmare. A cold hand suddenly grabs the trembling child, forcing him to witness the horrific scene. Grabbing him by the jaw, Arachne forcefully introduces the traumatized child to his dying father. Tears of absolute horror stream down Jin's face as his mother demands to know his thoughts. Staring at his father's lifeless eye, Jin listens to his mother compare their striking gazes. Looking closely into the child's weeping purple eye, Arachne spits her deep disgust for his lineage. Collapsing backward onto the blood-stained floor, the boy groans in complete physical and mental shock. A deafening scream of pure despair echoes through the dark, traumatic memories. A heavy static darkness slowly fades as the horrific flashback draws to a close. Back in the bright present, Jin quietly shares the painful origin of his deepest trauma with Astrid. Trembling violently, Jin clutches his water glass, bitterly calling his lingering terror pathetic. Astrid firmly rejects his self-loathing, reaching out to grasp his shaking hands with warm understanding. Looking into his eyes, the brown-haired doctor passionately reassures him that anyone would be scarred by such horror. Overcome with empathy, Astrid wraps her arms around Jin, thanking him deeply for surviving his tragic past. Jin freezes in stunned silence, deeply moved by the doctor's gentle, healing embrace. A comforting hand settles on Jin's shoulder, offering silent, rock-solid support from his loyal ally. Richard stands beside them, his warm, reassuring smile reflecting their unbreakable bond of friendship. A soft, genuine smile finally graces Jin's face as he basks in the warmth of his true family. The scene shifts as Richard enters the room and Jin inquires if he escorted the doctor safely. Turning to his silver-haired companion, Jin suddenly expresses his deep, heartfelt gratitude to him. With a nostalgic smile, the dark-haired commander admits he is simply reminiscing about their shared journey. Jin recalls how his loyal companion has always stood by his side, fighting his battles since childhood. A nostalgic memory flashes of a young, silver-haired Richard furiously defending a beaten-up Jin. He fondly remembers their reckless escape from the village, bringing the young orange-haired Louis along. The peaceful warmth of their shared history brings a gentle pause to the narrative. Another memory shows the two young men resting against a brick wall after establishing their revolutionary group. Looking out at the flowers, Jin quietly reiterates his deep, unwavering appreciation for Richard's loyalty. Suddenly shifting to a playful chibi style, Jin teases his companion for being surprisingly oblivious. Flustered and scratching his head against a pink backdrop, the silver-haired warrior reacts with comical confusion. Deep emotional confessions echo as a loyal follower admits their devotion to Jin. Hearing these words, the dark-haired warrior Jin stands frozen in absolute shock. Richard clarifies that their unbreakable bond is built on far more than mere loyalty. The heavy moment suddenly breaks as a flustered Richard reacts with comical confusion. Blushing furiously, Richard angrily demands that Jin stop laughing at his embarrassment. Turning serious, Jin asks if Rickhart will continue to trust his judgment. A tense pause hangs over the quiet room as the weight of the question settles. Frustrated by the cryptic question, Richard stands up and demands some direct answers. Jin taps his fingers, pointing out how suspicious it is that Arachne knew his location. Richard is forced to agree, finding the enemy leader's sudden arrival deeply troubling. Jin dismisses her complex motives, noting she simply lives to torment and mess with him. Hesitating to speak, Jin's hand anxiously clutches his clothes as a grim realization dawns. The terrifying truth is spoken aloud, revealing a deadly spy hiding in their city. Staring in absolute disbelief, Richard is completely paralyzed by the threat of a traitor. Memories of their failed armory operation flash back, proving a traitor has been active. Overwhelmed by shock, Richard gasps Jin's name as the danger becomes incredibly real. Though Jin hates to doubt comrades who bleed beside them, the facts cannot lie. A dark, terrifying silhouette of shadowy executioners with glowing red eyes threatens their sanctuary. A heavy, silent dread fills the grand greenhouse as both warriors contemplate the threat. Bowing his head in deep appreciation, Jin sincerely thanks his loyal companion. Parting for the night, the exhausted allies exchange brief, weary wishes for rest. Jin reasons that the spy's true motive must be something far more dangerous than money. Left alone in the beautiful greenhouse, the isolated commander seeks comfort amidst the flowers. The scene shifts to a peaceful morning marked by a warm cup of tea. Elsewhere in the sanctuary, Astrid desperately chugs down her beverage in a single gulp. Astrid suddenly slams her head face down onto the table with a dramatic scream. Clutching her face, she finally understands why everyone in the city was so excited. Astrid whips around excitedly, demanding confirmation that Jin's birthday is coming up. Her orange-haired helper sweat drops in surprise at the doctor's sudden burst of energy. Practicing her sutures on pigskin, Astrid gasps as a creative gift idea strikes. Looking weary, Astrid sheepishly laughs off her helper's questions about her lack of sleep. Astrid happily confesses she stayed up all night preparing a special handmade birthday gift. While the helper praises her incredible dedication, a flustered Astrid frantically waves her hands. A soft, loving expression covers Astrid's face as she contemplates her special gift. Remembering Jin's interest in the greenhouse flora, she decides to embroider a handkerchief. Astrid is confident she can finish embroidering the floral patterns on the handkerchief in time. The helper's face turns solemn as she explains why Jin's birthday is so meaningful. Astrid gasps in sudden realization upon learning that no one expected Jin to live. She recalls that in the original tragic story, Jin was destined to die months ago. Overwhelmed by the dark reality she successfully altered, Astrid looks down in deep thought. A beautiful emotional smile spreads across Astrid's face as pure relief washes over her. The orange-haired helper playfully teases the crying doctor, reminding her this is happy news. Suddenly, the helper casually mentions that Richard also had a birthday very recently. An immediate wave of complete confusion and question marks washes over a stunned Astrid. Pumping her fists in chibi-style determination, Astrid prepares to handle the unexpected news. Astrid screams out in pure shock, completely blindsided by the sudden revelation. Leaning over her desk in a panic, Astrid demands to know when Richard's birthday was. She suspiciously wonders if it is normal for two best friends to share close birthdays. The helper chimes in excitedly, leaving the flustered doctor to ponder her next move. Looking at Richard's brooding back, Astrid smiles at how typical it is of his personality. Astrid worries that Jin might secretly feel hurt if they do not celebrate his birthday. Seeking gift ideas, Astrid asks Louis what he gave Jin for his birthday. With a bright smile, the orange-haired Louis proudly boasts about developing a new combat weapon. Astrid realizes that a lethal weapon is completely useless as a reference for a birthday gift. Lost in deep thought, the brown-haired doctor ponders other potential gift options. Under a starry blue sky, Astrid remains stuck on what she should give him. The next morning, a tired Astrid reluctantly wakes up and stretches in her bed. Rubbing her eyes, she is surprised by Gede's unexpected early morning visit. Spotting a large box on her table, Astrid is completely stunned. Astrid wonders what kind of surprise gift Jen would have sent her. Looking closely at the contents, her eyes widen in absolute disbelief. Overwhelmed by shock, the young doctor gasps in utter confusion at the unexpected delivery. Inside the package lies an elegant purple dress accompanied by a sealed letter. Intrigued, she notices the accompanying letter and prepares to read it. The letter invites her to a grand banquet celebrating Jin's birthday tonight. Jin explains he sent the gown to ensure she had something suitable to wear. Astrid blushes furiously as she holds up the stunning custom-made dress. Filled with joy, she happily embraces the beautiful gown close to her chest. Meanwhile, Jin sits in his study holding a book, reflecting on his birthday. Richard enters to ask if Jin is feeling well enough for the upcoming banquet. Jin removes his glasses and smiles, wishing to greet everyone waiting for him. In a cute chibi moment, Richard reminds Jin of the banquet's uplifting purpose. Jin agrees that a day of worry-free celebration is exactly what his people need.
Leaning on his arms, a warm thought of Astrid crosses Jin's mind. He envisions Astrid looking absolutely breathtaking in the elegant purple gown. His daydream is suddenly interrupted as Richard calls out his name. Jin quickly snaps back to reality, leaving his companion looking highly amused. The two allies stand in the study ready to address serious military matters. Shifting his focus, Richard reports on his investigation into the leaked walk schedule. With a solemn look, the silver-haired warrior admits there has been no suspicious movement. Jin sighs, noting that the lack of active contact with the enemy is a mixed blessing. Staring into the distance, a dark resolve washes over the commander's face. Jin confidently asserts that it is finally time to spring a trap on the traitor. The scene shifts back as a cheerful voice invites the doctor to the banquet. The orange-haired helper Louis strikes an energetic pose in a stylish suit. Standing up from her desk, Astrid realizes how quickly the time has flown. Astrid enthusiastically praises Louis's incredibly sharp and dapper outfit. Louis sheepishly explains she wore pants to avoid the awkwardness of wearing a skirt. Astrid warmly reassures Louis, patting her head and calling her absolutely beautiful. A polished shoe steps into the room, signaling the arrival of their next guest. Astrid is instantly starry-eyed, gasping in complete awe at who just walked in. She swoons over how incredibly handsome their silver-haired companion looks. Wearing a sleek formal suit and cape, a blushing Richard admits he feels incredibly awkward. Dismissing his shyness, Astrid playfully grabs his arm and tells him to enjoy the night. With spirits high, they prepare to head out to the celebration together. Walking arm in arm, the trio looks absolutely stunning in their formal attire. Louis proudly flings open the heavy wooden doors to reveal the grand venue. Astrid gasps in amazement at the massive scale of the beautifully decorated hall. Looking around in wonder, she marvels at the massive crowd gathered underground. Dressed in her breathtaking gown, the doctor steps forward to join the festive crowd. Just as Astrid enters the beautiful banquet hall, an energetic call echoes across the room, catching her attention. The young blonde boy greets Astrid, Louis, and Richard with a bright, welcoming smile. In a playful chibi moment, Louis gushes over the boy's cuteness, while Astrid frantically worries about securing seats for the banquet. Holding her hand gently, the sweet boy reassures Astrid that her comfort and presence are what matter most. Looking over at the lively crowd, Astrid feels a deep sense of relief seeing the young boy surrounded by warm friends. A sudden, metallic clinking sound rings out across the banquet hall, signaling that the speeches are about to begin. Standing tall at the front, the charismatic Commander Jin addresses the gathered crowd as his beloved liberators. Astrid watches in awe as Jin sincerely thanks everyone for coming together to celebrate his birthday. The wounded soldiers listen intently as their leader acknowledges the difficult road and struggles that lie ahead of them. Jin encourages his people to cast aside their heavy burdens, if only for tonight, and enjoy the festivities. With profound gratitude, the commander delivers a deeply touching tribute, calling his people his family and comrades. Placing his hand over his heart, Jin smiles warmly at the loyal supporters who have stood by him through everything. Stepping forward, Richard proudly raises his voice to propose a grand birthday toast in honor of their beloved commander. Raising his glass high under the sparkling lights, the silver-haired warrior leads the celebration with absolute pride. A thunderous roar erupts through the grand hall as everyone raises their glasses and cheers in unison for Jin's long life. The energy in the sanctuary reaches a fever pitch as the crowd joyfully toasts to their future and their leader. Sipping her drink in a cute chibi style, Astrid marvels at how Jin possesses an undeniable magnetic charisma despite his fragile health. Overwhelmed with excitement, Louis eagerly suggests that it is finally time for them to present their special birthday gifts. Jin is momentarily taken aback as his closest companions step up to present him with their carefully prepared packages. A slightly flustered Richard playfully urges Jin to stop hesitating and open the first gift without delay. Opening the wrapper, Jin is amazed to find a rare, legendary text documenting the ancient secrets of the Dwarven civilization. A brilliant, genuine smile lights up Jin's face as he holds the incredibly thoughtful and rare book close to him. Richard looks on with deep affection, teasingly telling his close friend that the best way to show gratitude is to live a long, healthy life. Seeing everyone else's grand gestures, Astrid stands nervously in the background as Louis excitedly steps forward to present her own gift. When Louise boasts about her highly advanced custom weapon, Richard jokingly points out that she probably just wanted an excuse to build it. Staring down at her modest handmade handkerchief, Astrid is suddenly struck by a wave of insecurity, feeling her gift is far too plain. Letting her anxiety get the better of her, she decides to hide the present behind her back and pretend it simply was not ready yet. She convinces herself that waiting for a more private, quieter moment is a much better plan anyway. Resolving to present her handmade embroidery on another day, she quietly slips away from the bustling group. Seeking a quiet escape to clear her head, Astrid wanders away from the main banquet floor. Blushing furiously from a mix of embarrassment and the sweet wine, the young doctor sighs, realizing she might have drunk a bit too much. She glances back to see a completely hyperactive Louis thoroughly enjoying herself and having the absolute time of her life. Suddenly, Louis stops dead in her tracks, her playful demeanor instantly vanishing into comical shock. Realizing Louis has noticed her missing gift, Astrid frantically hushes her companion to keep her quiet. Blush spreading across her face, the flustered doctor desperately tries to laugh off their friend's confusion. Louis continues to whine about the missed opportunity while her brother, Richard, approaches the bickering pair.
Gently grabbing her arm, Richard sternly advises his sister to stop drinking before she makes a complete fool of herself.
Completely unfazed by his warning, a highly combative Louis comically challenges her brother to a physical showdown. As Louis loudly demands more drinks, Astrid quietly thanks Richard for saving her from further interrogation. From across the crowded room, Jin's sharp eyes catch sight of Astrid slipping quietly through the heavy double doors. Stepping out into the cool, silent hallway, Astrid exhales a sigh of relief, realizing the festive atmosphere had made her lose her composure. Her peaceful moment is suddenly shattered when the door creaks open, revealing the commander himself stepping outside. Jin gently asks if she is finding his party dull, prompting a flustered Astrid to quickly explain she was just trying to sober up. With a soft blush dusting his cheeks, the commander compliments her appearance and warmly asks if she likes the dress he chose. Astrid smiles beautifully, twirling her stunning purple gown as she expresses her deep gratitude for such a wonderful gift. Witnessing her breathtaking grace, the usually composed commander stands completely frozen, his heart skipping a beat. Regaining his composure, Jin asks if she would join him on a quiet walk to a secret location, piquing her curiosity. Reaching his gloved hand out to her, the dark-haired commander promises she will absolutely love where they are headed. Intrigued by the mysterious destination, the excited young doctor eagerly accepts, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Standing in awe, they arrive at a breathtaking underground cavern filled with glowing blue magic crystals, leaving Astrid utterly speechless. Amidst the glowing silence of the caverns, a rock crystal glows a vibrant blue, holding a mystery that changes with every strike. Stepping onto the slippery path, Jin offers his hand to steady Astrid as doubts about her true identity linger. With a quiet flourish, Jin reveals their mysterious, glistening cavern destination hidden deep below. A peaceful underground lake shimmers under the crystalline glow, leaving her completely breathless. Jin reminisces about finding solace in this hidden sanctuary whenever his mind felt burdened. He wistfully reflects on how his failing health kept him from visiting his favorite retreat. A sparkling blue mist drifts over the serene scene, heightening the quiet intimacy between them. As they continue their walk, a heavy tension hangs in the air, hinting at unspoken truths. In the cute moment, Jin urges Astrid to speak casually, catching her completely off guard. Astrid panics internally, terrified that her secret identity or medical incompetence is about to be exposed. Sensing her distress, Jin flashes a knowing, playful smirk and warns her against trying to deceive him. Stunned by his sharp insight, Astrid gasps, realizing she is utterly cornered. Leaning in close, the handsome commander insists he cannot contain his curiosity and demands her birthday gift. Utterly flustered, Astrid realizes she has no choice but to hand over her humble present. With trembling, lace-covered hands, she nervously presents the wrapped package, promising a grander gift in the future. Standing under the warm glow, Jin is momentarily stunned as Astrid softly wishes him a happy birthday. His eyes light up with childlike excitement as he eagerly asks if he can open the present immediately. The delicate ribbon slides away, building suspense as the modest package is finally unveiled. Unfolding the white cloth, Jin discovers a hand-embroidered sprig of vibrant purple lavender. Blushing slightly, Jin looks up to ask why she chose to embroider lavender flowers of all things. Looking down with a deep blush, Astrid shyly admits it is simply because she likes them. The commander stands completely frozen in astonishment, his heart skipping a beat at her words. Clutching the precious gift close, Jin's gloved hand tightens as he murmurs his agreement. The air fills with a sweet fragrance as the commander softly confesses his affection for her. A breathtaking, tender smile graces Jin's face as he looks at her with absolute adoration. Astrid's eyes widen in sheer shock as her heart begins to pound furiously against her ribs. Her breath catches as the sheer weight of his confession echoes in the quiet cavern. Confused by her own racing heart, she looks at her reflection in the water, wondering what is happening. A soft shimmering pink wave washes over the scene, mirroring the blossoming romance. Jin chuckles softly, amused by her adorable and flustered reaction to his words. Holding the handkerchief proudly, he beams as he declares his genuine love for the flower. He looks back at her with a gentle, reassuring gaze to ease her wild panic. Clutching her chest in relief, Astrid gasps, realizing she completely misunderstood his confession. Seeing her flushed cheeks, a playful Jin teases her about what she was actually expecting him to say. Jin warmly thanks her by her full name, throwing her back into a state of hilarious shock. Flustered, Astrid tries to downplay her rushed work, but Jin questions her needless modesty. Gently tracing the delicate stitches, Jin insists that a sincere handmade gift is the most precious thing. Astrid struggles to find her words, her embarrassment reaching its peak under his warm gaze. Jin looks down at his golden cane, quietly admitting he never expected to survive to see another birthday. Looking up at her with profound gratitude, he attributes his survival entirely to her dedication. In a somber reflection, Jin remembers a time when he had completely prepared to end his agonizing life. Astrid's expression softens with deep empathy as Jin explains the crushing despair of wanting to live but facing constant failure. Watching him, Astrid reflects on her own sudden death, realizing the immense strength required to suffer for so long. Her heart aches with profound sympathy as she looks at the resilient man before her. Turning to her, Jin declares that she brought him hope and sincerely thanks her for becoming his doctor. Smiling through her tears, Astrid warmly expresses her own deep gratitude for his survival. Beautiful white blossoms frame her final salve prayer of thanks for his continued life. A serene, glowing light envelops Jin as he smiles back with pure, unburdened happiness. The scene shifts briefly as preparations for the ongoing festivities continue across the sanctuary. Suddenly, a startled Richard turns around in the bright hall as his name is called, setting up a new twist. Smiling warmly, Astrid surprises her companion by announcing she has a special birthday gift for him. She holds out a neatly wrapped gift box, gently offering it to the silver-haired young man. Richard stares down at the small package in utter confusion, demanding to know what it is. Blushing sheepishly, Astrid explains that she learned of his birthday far too late, causing the delay. Inside the beautifully wrapped box lies an adorable tiny hand-stitched lion plush keychain. Stunned by the sweet gesture, a furiously blushing Richard stammeringly offers a quiet thank you. Looking down with a soft blush, he admits he never anticipated receiving such a thoughtful present. Astrid watches him with amusement, completely caught off guard by his surprisingly shy and adorable reaction. Suddenly, his playful demeanor completely vanishes as Richard calls out to her with immense seriousness. Turning to face him, Astrid listens as Richard quietly admits he has something important to apologize for. She is instantly left bewildered, wondering if he refers to the cold distance he maintained before. Richard formally offers his apology, prompting a shocked Astrid to shout in absolute surprise. Astrid quickly reassures him, but a regretful Richard admits his harsh treatment of her was completely unjustified. Looking away in shame, he confesses that his past behavior has heavily burdened his conscience. Reaching out, Astrid gently places her hand over his, asking if he remembers her past reassurance. She warmly reiterates that she completely understands his actions both in the past and now. A brief memory surfaces of her past shock during their tense, difficult encounters. In the flashback, she recalls telling him how painful it is to watch a loved one suffer. Returning to the present, Astrid smiles beautifully, assuring him that his deep devotion to Jin is clear. She sheepishly laughs off her own past selfishness, admitting she had wanted to run away alone. Deeply touched by her kindness, Richard looks up at her with immense gratitude in his eyes. A profound, warm understanding finally settles between the two close companions. Richard tightly clutches the tiny handmade lion charm in his hand, treasuring her thoughtful gift. A new day begins as Astrid arrives at the sunlit conservatory to perform Jin's morning examination. She notices the commander is completely engrossed in the rare dwarven book she gifted him. Astrid marvels at his dedication, noting the book is written in an ancient, long-dead language. She points out his lighter schedule, wondering if his administrative duties have finally slowed down. Snapping the heavy volume shut, Jin prepares to share a highly confidential matter with her. Resting his chin on his hands, Jin requests her secret cooperation for an upcoming plan. Astrid gulps nervously, clutching her clipboard as she waits for him to reveal his proposal. Jin explains he cannot officially perform his duties, urging her to keep his condition a secret. A playful smirk crosses his face as he asks her to stay by his side to fake a critical illness. Sweating nervously, Astrid agrees but questions the operational reasons behind pretending he is critically ill. She suddenly realizes this secret ploy perfectly explains why he stopped his suspicious rodent lessons. Leaning on his desk, Jin smiles mysteriously as Astrid desperately begs him to explain the truth. Astrid's eyes sparkle with excitement as Jin promises to explain everything during their evening checkup. Jin's face falls completely flat in comical exasperation as he hears her mention a new medicine. Astrid strictly orders him to take his bitter dose, completely ignoring his childish, complaining protests. She quickly reassures him that the bitter medicine is actually a hangover cure prepared for Louis. Waving a cheerful goodbye, Astrid promises to return for their highly anticipated evening appointment. The heavy double doors close shut with a solid click, leaving the commander completely alone. Holding his face in his hands, Jin completely melts, whispering about how incredibly cute she is. Astrid steps into Rick's cozy office, warmly announcing her arrival to the young boy. Rick and a nervous Louis turn around in surprise, greeting the young doctor with anxious expressions. Rick explains Louis accompanied him to retrieve her requested medicine, which Astrid quickly hands over. An incredibly heavy, awkward silence suddenly falls over the library, catching everyone off guard. Astrid sweats profusely in comical panic, desperately wondering if the two had a massive argument. Waving his hands defensively, a flustered Rick quickly tries to explain away the uncomfortable tension. Suddenly, a panicked Louis shrieks in absolute terror, asking if the commander's health is rapidly failing. Recalling Jin's warnings, a frozen Astrid stares blankly as a disastrous new misunderstanding spirals completely out of control. Cornered by their intense worry, Astrid apologizes and nervously admits she cannot share the secret with them. Seeing their devastated expressions, Astrid panics internally, desperately wondering what to do as they both look ready to burst into tears. Overwhelmed by the crushing atmosphere, Astrid hurriedly excuses herself and promises to see them next time as she flees the room. The heavy door slams shut, leaving the worried companion standing in a tense and awkward silence. Walking down the grand corridor, Astrid clenches her fists as she is consumed by intense guilt over keeping them in the dark. Astrid sits at her desk, agonizing over why there would be any reason to hide Jin's condition from his closest companions. Unable to bear the suspense, she suddenly bolts down the hallway to find the commander and demand answers. With a loud crash, Astrid kicks the heavy double doors wide open, calling out to the commander in a sheer panic. Caught completely off guard, Jin pauses his writing and looks up with a calm, curious gaze. Trembling with anxiety, Astrid demands that he immediately tell her exactly what is going on with his secretive plan.
Jin playfully questions if it is too early for their evening checkup, but Astrid fiercely insists that arriving early is perfectly fine.
Smiling warmly, the commander hands her a refreshing glass of water and gently urges her to catch her breath first. Astrid angrily glares at him while drinking, snapping that she is dying of anxiety while he sits there laughing, prompting his sheepish apology.
Setting the empty glass down, she presses him once again to reveal the truth behind his strange behavior. Striking a contemplative pose, Jen rests his hand on his chin, wondering where he should begin his explanation.
Astrid's eyes widen in sheer disbelief as she gasps at the sudden revelation of a spy.
Jin explains that countless obstacles have mysteriously hindered his every move, only for the culprit to vanish whenever he investigates.
A dark, cunning smirk plays on his lips as he prepares to reveal his counter-strategy.
He confidently declares that his goal is to catch the enemy off guard by making them believe they have succeeded.
The gravity of the situation looms heavy as the pieces of this dangerous game begin to fall into place.
Astrid is absolutely stunned when Jin reveals the spy is actually someone very close to them, leaving her in complete shock. Jin reflects on how these mysterious obstacles have constantly disrupted his operations from the shadows. He reiterates his grand plan to bait the hidden enemy by intentionally lowering his defenses. Astrid stands completely bewildered, her head spinning with confusion over his high-stakes gamble. Jin explains that the spy immediately went into hiding because they sensed it was too dangerous to expose themselves just yet. Tapping his finger rhythmically against the desk, Jin outlines his decision to wait rather than pursue the culprit immediately. Astrid realizes he is pretending to be critically ill to lower their guard, but questions if anyone will believe it after his healthy appearance at the banquet. Jin smugly boasts about his spectacular acting skills, leaving Astrid sweating in comical disbelief at his supreme confidence. The commander's playful expression fades as he silently reflects on the severity of the threats surrounding them. Astrid folds her arms, anxiously questioning how his plan can possibly succeed if the entire organization thinks their leader is incapacitated. Jin explains that only a select few need to know, surmising the spy must be one of his executives since they are so close to him. He notes that by cutting off meetings and swearing the executives to silence, the rumors of his critical illness will naturally spread. Recalling the genuine panic on Rick and Lewis's faces, Astrid grudgingly admits that his deceptive strategy is incredibly effective. Jin suddenly bursts out laughing, leaving a highly annoyed Astrid demanding to know what he finds so amusing. Jin chuckles as he imagines Richard attempting to lie, comparing the silver-haired knight's stiff demeanor to a wooden ventriloquist dummy. Astrid sighs deeply, unable to picture the brutally honest knight successfully pulling off such a massive deception. Looking at the ticking clock, Astrid asks if it is truly wise to share such a vital secret with her while keeping his closest allies in the dark. Jin leans forward with an open smile, explaining his absolute trust in her as they continue their secret planning. Astrid looks at him, her heart softening as she realizes the depth of his reliance on her. The commander gazes back at her with a gentle, serene smile that makes the entire room feel warmer. Shimmering light surrounds him, highlighting the intense, quiet bond blooming between the two. Astrid feels a sudden blush creep onto her cheeks under his captivating and affectionate gaze. Jen leans closer over the desk, softly laughing as he asks if she is feeling better after her initial panic. Placing his hand flat on the desk, he asks if she would be willing to stay by his side a little longer to ensure the operation's success. As night deepens, the cozy fireplace crackles softly, casting a warm glow over the quiet room. Later in his chambers, Jin looks back in surprise as he notices a quiet presence near his bedside. He finds Astrid sitting on a chair, completely exhausted and nodding off to sleep from her grueling day. Startled by a sudden movement, Astrid's eyes snap wide open as she tries to shake off her intense drowsiness. Suddenly, Jin catches her by the shoulders, looking into her eyes with immense tenderness as he asks if she is tired. Looking at her with a sweet, heart-fluttering smile, Jin softly offers his own bed if she needs a place to lie down and rest. Astrid gasps in pure, unadulterated shock as an unexpected proposal catches her completely off guard. Jin offers a playful, seductive smile, suggesting she rest comfortably on his spacious bed. Flustered and blushing furiously, Astrid stammers a nervous rejection to clear the awkward tension. Dere stands frozen in sheepish embarrassment, sweating profusely as he accidentally interrupts their intimate moment. Astrid shrieks in comical panic while Jin watches her chaotic reaction with sheer amusement. Jade quickly slips out the door as Astrid desperately yells that she has absolutely no intention of lying down. A deeply embarrassed Gede sighs outside the door as Astrid's frantic cries of misunderstanding echo loudly. Days pass in peaceful tranquility as quiet days finally return to the bustling conservatory. Left completely idle with her duties cleared, Astrid takes up knitting to pass the quiet hours. Lost deep in his own thoughts, Jen silently studies the ancient Dwarven book beside her. Astrid feels a sudden pang of guilt, knowing their worried companions are still suffering from their elaborate lie. Breaking the comfortable silence, Astrid curiously asks Jin how he and Richard first became friends. Jin pauses, his hand resting gently on the book as old memories begin to resurface. He explains that their unbreakable bond was forged during their childhood in the dangerous slums. The dark, cold shadows of their painful childhood set the stage for an unlikely friendship. Growing up in a treacherous neighborhood forced the two young boys to constantly rely on each other. Their connection grew even deeper when Richard's father joined the notorious Black Spider Syndicate.
The memories turn heavy as Jin recalls the terrible tragedy that caused him to completely isolate himself. Through those dark days of grief, Child Richard remained fiercely loyal, refusing to leave Jin's side.
Determined to strike back, Jin resolved to amass power and build an army to destroy Arachne.
He vowed to stop the Sinister Syndicate from expanding their dark influence over the Empire. More than just revenge, Jin dreamed of creating a peaceful world entirely free from oppression. Despite the near-impossible goal, Richard believed in him faithfully as they searched ancient texts together.
Their relentless searching eventually led them to discover the magnificent hidden underground dwarven civilization.
Years of shared secrets and struggles passed by in a quiet, peaceful blur. Astrid is utterly stunned to realize their legendary friendship has lasted 16 long years.
Astrid's heart swells with deep emotional warmth as she marvels at their beautiful, unwavering loyalty.
Heavy footsteps suddenly echo outside, prompting Jin to smirk as the legendary knight arrives. Richard suddenly bursts through the double doors, screaming out the commander's name in sheer panic.
A calm, relaxed Jin looks up, questioning his friend's disheveled and frantic behavior.
The playful atmosphere instantly vanishes as Jin's smile hardens into serious concern. Astrid flinches in sudden surprise as Richard urgently addresses her with a grave expression.
Sensing the immense weight of the situation, Richard gravely requests a moment alone with the commander. The heavy doors slam shut, leaving the young companions shut out in the corridor. Astrid and Gede exchange worried glances, deeply unsettled by the knight's sudden, frantic arrival. Astrid's eyes widen in terror as a sudden, violent crash echoes from behind the doors. Richard is seen sprinting frantically down the corridor, ignoring their desperate yells to stop. Inside, Jin is coughing violently into his hands as a panicked Astrid rushes to his side. Jed stands frozen in shock as Jin gasps out a desperate command to stop the knight.
Crimson danger looms large as the terrible realization hits that Richard is running straight into a deadly trap.
The shadows of danger deepen as the high-stakes gamble takes a terrifying turn.
A heavy, ominous silence hangs in the air as betrayal prepares to rear its ugly head.
The scene shifts to the quiet conservatory as Jin demands to know who breached their security.
Clutching his chest in frustration, Richard reveals that the Black Spider successfully raided the port of Peas. Clenching his fist in anger, the silver-haired knight apologizes, admitting a captured enemy member somehow escaped.
A chilling truth begins to unfold, pointing directly to a traitor who leaked the confidential harbor plans. The stolen secrets fall into enemy hands, sealing a dark fate for their upcoming operations. The smug, sinister face of Taud is revealed as the mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows.
Rewinding to a few days prior, the pieces of this elaborate betrayal begin to fall into place.
Leaning over the desk, Richard questions why Jin is writing with such strange, deliberate caution. Jin devises a cunning psychological trap, intentionally altering his handwriting to make his written orders appear physically weak and frail. He playfully chides his silver-haired knight, pointing out how Richard's terrible lying skills are the sole reason they must resort to such elaborate schemes. Standing in the quiet sanctuary of the greenhouse, Jin finalizes the trap letters and instructs the silver-haired knight to distribute them to the executives. Each letter contains slightly different information, turning them into unique tracking beacons to expose whichever traitor leaks their contents to the enemy. Deep in thought, Jin calculates his next move, realizing the escaping Black Spider member has likely already alerted their leader, Taud, to the trap.
An ominous silence fills the room as the heavy weight of impending betrayal presses down on him. The two lifelong allies stand in absolute silence, the growing rift of disagreement beginning to fracture their trust. The silver-haired knight grits his teeth in pure frustration, unable to accept his commander's calculated coldness. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Richard turns on his heel, declaring his intention to confront the traitor directly.
Jin stands up to protest, warning his hot-headed friend that charging headfirst into the enemy's territory is a suicide mission.
A tense, unresolved vibration lingers in the air as both men refuse to back out.
Clenching his gloved fist in quiet rebellion, the knight's resolve hardens against his commander's warnings.
Bound by his own sense of justice, Richard silently apologizes to his oldest friend as he prepares to defy direct orders.
A violent slam echoes through the corridor as Jin desperately calls out to his departing friend.
Left behind in the empty greenhouse, Jin clutches the edge of his desk as dread washes over him.
Richard sprints frantically down the palace corridors, completely ignoring the desperate commands to stop.
Jetty stands frozen in the hallway, pleading in vain for the relentless knight to halt his mad dash.
Barely able to stand, Jin struggles forward while gasping a desperate order to save Richard from his own recklessness. The scene abruptly shifts as a voice rings out in shocked disbelief at the mention of the traitor's name. Standing by his bedside, Astrid listens intently as Jin begins to explain the history of their primary target. Jin reveals that the traitor had been a key founding member of their resistance group, the Liberators, since the very beginning. Astrid's eyes widen with concern as she learns how deeply integrated the traitor's wealthy merchant guild was within their operations. Recalling the past, Jin admits he believed the man's connections would serve as a vital asset for securing spice trade routes.
Clutching his head in deep regret, the commander laments his own failure to foresee the betrayal, while Astrid watches him with deep sympathy.
Jin quietly acknowledges that the emotional toll of this deception must be devastating for the fiercely loyal silver-haired knight. He reflects on how Richard's absolute, unwavering loyalty makes it impossible for him to easily accept such a cruel betrayal.
Jin suddenly sits up straight in alarm, sensing that Gede has finally returned with news of the hunt.
A tremulous apology echoes from the threshold as the door begins to swing open. Gede slumps against the doorframe, completely exhausted and breathless from his frantic mission. Terror grips the commander as Gede delivers the devastating news that Richard had already departed the safety of the underground city. Jin's hand trembles as he tightly clenches the bedsheet, horrified by the realization of what his friend has done.
Gede explains that the silver-haired knight did not go entirely alone, having mobilized several combat squads to accompany him.
Astrid gently coaxes the weakened commander back down to rest, warning him that his fading health cannot handle any more stress. She tenderly strokes his hair, promising to wake him before dusk falls so he can resume command of the search. With his remaining strength, Jin begs her to awaken him the very moment his friend returns, drifting off as she softly agrees. Leaving the chambers, Astrid instructs Gede to keep a close watch over the resting commander while she steps away. As she walks through the quiet palace corridors holding her medical rod, a sudden sound catches her attention.
Gasping in sudden shock, Astrid spots the familiar silver-haired figure leaning weakly against a massive doorway.
She sprints toward him at full speed, demanding to know where he has been all this time.
The silent knight looks down with a grim, hollow expression, completely unresponsive to her frantic questioning.
She urges him to hasten inside to reassure Jin, but her breath catches when he weakly murmurs her name. Richard collapses completely, his heavy body slumping forward into the stunned doctor's arms. Panicking, Astrid struggles to hold his weight, desperately checking if he has sustained any physical injuries. Her heart stops in pure terror as she pulls her hand back, finding it covered in fresh, glistening blood.
Shivering with dread, she looks closer and notices a massive, bloody stain soaking through his dark cloak.
The gravely wounded knight slips completely into unconsciousness, his breathing shallow as his life hangs by a thread. Sensing his friend's dire peril, Jin suddenly bolts upright in bed with a violent gasp of sheer panic. Gede bursts into the bedroom to deliver the breathless news of the silver-haired knight's sudden, tragic return. Ignoring his own failing body, the commander tries to throw off the covers, but Gede desperately holds him back. Meanwhile, Astrid works tirelessly by the bedside, utilizing all her medical expertise to save the legendary knight from the brink of death. The high-stakes crisis deepens as Jin bolts upright in bed, his face pale with severe anxiety. A sudden wave of intense dizziness hits the weakened commander, blurring his vision and threatening to overwhelm him. Jeed rushes forward to support the black-haired commander as he suddenly slumps forward, groaning in severe pain. In a state of sheer panic, the young companion desperately asks if the commander is all right.
When Gede offers to summon the doctor immediately, Jin firmly stops him, refusing any medical aid despite his desperate breathlessness.
Driven by sheer willpower, the black-haired commander glares forward, refusing to let his failing body succumb. The heavy burden of duty continues to press down on the resistance as the scene shifts to the dark corridors. Astrid runs toward the silver-haired knight in absolute shock, frantically demanding to know where he has been. The knight collapses directly into her arms, prompting Astrid to scream for him to wake up as the companions watch in horror. Gede demands to know why the doctor is lingering outside while the critical situation unfolds. Astrid urgently commands the shocked onlookers to immediately help her move the unconscious knight inside. Her medical training kicks in as she frantically analyzes the severe shoulder injury, desperately recalling which critical blood vessels are located there. Panicking as her mind goes completely blank, she commands herself to focus on stopping the heavy bleeding first. Astrid barks out orders to Louis, telling her to place a cushion under the knight's legs immediately. A sudden movement from the wounded knight draws Astrid's startled attention. Regaining weak consciousness, the silver-haired knight desperately begs the doctor not to reveal his condition to Jin. Overcome with deep sorrow, Astrid silently nods, tearfully agreeing to keep his secret from their commander. Astrid firmly holds down the groaning knight as she prepares to inspect the severity of his chest wound. Examining the damage, Astrid is relieved to find the bullet pass completely through without severing any major blood vessels. Astrid is deeply unsettled, questioning how a weapon capable of such a devastating through-and-through gunshot could exist in this era. Louis calls out to her in a trembling voice, drawing Astrid's immediate attention. Tears well up in the orange-haired girl's eyes as she makes a horrifying realization. Louis reveals in sheer terror that the wound was caused by a specific pistol issued only to their elite executives. Astrid clenches her fists in pure rage, cursing Tao the Snake for committing such a vile betrayal. The room tenses up as Richard groans in agony, prompting Goodell to call out his name in deep concern. Astrid commands the others to bring anesthetic and sterilized suturing tools immediately to begin the procedure. Staring at the bloody shoulder, Astrid is gripped by paralyzing fear, recalling that she has only ever practiced surgery on pigskin. Steel-shod resolve replaces her doubt as she places her faith in her legendary medical identity and prepares to operate. A heavy, agonizing silence falls over the corridor as the life-or-death surgery begins behind closed doors. Louis and Gede wait anxiously in the corridor, praying for the legendary knight's survival. The doctor's trembling hand reaches for the surgical scissors as she takes the first critical step. Exhausted but relieved, Astrid announces that the operation is finished, leaving the knight's fate to his safe recovery. Astrid's eyes land on a blood-stained, small lion plush keychain lying silently on the floor. The tragic truth unfolds as she realizes the knight had been clutching this token tightly throughout the entire ordeal. A poignant memory flashes of the silver-haired knight leaning wearily on the doctor for support. Astrid gently cradles the blood-stained plush to her chest, her heart aching for the suffering knight. Astrid instructs Louis to take the soiled plush and have it washed along with her own medical garments. Blood is washed away into running water, symbolizing the physical end of the desperate medical battle. Looking down at the bandaged knight, Astrid resolves to report everything to Jin the moment the sun rises. The feverish knight rests in fitful sleep, fighting to survive his near-fatal injuries. Astrid checks his forehead, praying fervently that his legendary health will carry him through the night. A sudden knock on the door interrupts the quiet as Getty calls out for the commander. Jin sits up instantly, anxiously demanding to know if Getty has any news about Richard's condition. Getty steps forward, reassuring Jin that the treatment went safely and the doctor believes the knight will survive. Getty lets out a soft sigh of relief, trusting the doctor's expert assessment completely. Overcome with profound relief, Jin sinks back into his bed, finally able to sleep without crushing worry. Getty promises to watch over the sleeping commander, who weakly whispers his heartfelt gratitude. Meanwhile, Astrid succumbs to deep, bone-weary exhaustion, falling asleep right at her desk. Suddenly jolting awake with a gasp, Astrid looks around the dimly lit room in sudden panic. Gripped by an ominous feeling, she frantically calls out the knight's name as her heart pounds with terror. Waking up from the brink of death, the legendary silver-haired knight weakly calls out to the doctor as he regains consciousness. Pain instantly shoots through Richard's shoulder, prompting Astrid to frantically warn him not to move as she promises to administer painkillers. The brown-haired doctor gently checks his physical reflexes, asking if he feels any numbness in his fingertips. Wiping his mouth, the wounded knight weakly assures her that his body seems to be functioning normally. He slowly flexes his hand against the sheets, testing his motor skills after the grueling surgery. Astrid looks at him with intense concern, desperately demanding to know what happened during his confrontation with the traitorous Todd. A shadow of deep regret falls over the silver-haired knight as he looks away, admitting that the traitor managed to escape. Filled with shame, Richard laments that he cannot bring himself to face their commander, while Astrid mentally scolds him for ignoring warnings. Despite his guilt, the stubborn knight grumbles to himself, unable to fully accept his failure. He sits quietly in his recovery bed, his heavily bandaged torso a stark reminder of his narrow escape from death. Astrid sits beside his bed, gently noting that the sting of betrayal from someone he trusted so deeply must be devastating. Her words of deep empathy caused the stoic knight's eyes to widen in sudden surprise. Overwhelmed by her unexpected kindness, the silver-haired knight blushes furiously while stammering out his heartfelt gratitude. Astrid leans in close, pointing out with medical concern that his face has suddenly turned bright red. Panicking, Richard quickly covers his face with his hand, embarrassedly denying that he is running a fever. The doctor sighs in exasperation, wondering how long he intends to keep avoiding his closest companion. Astrid's gaze lands on the heavily blood-stained small lion plush keychain lying nearby. Richard quickly speaks up, insisting that he does not mind the stains and just wants his precious token back once it dries. Astrid looks at him in quiet amusement, realizing the intimidating knight has a surprising fondness for cute things. Standing up from her chair, the doctor prepares to leave, stating she must update Jin on his stable condition. Suddenly, Richard reaches out and clutches her green dress, hesitantly asking if she truly has to leave so soon. Realizing his impulsive action, the knight blushes deeply and quickly lets go, trying to stammer an excuse. He looks up at her with a remarkably soft and vulnerable expression, showing a rare side of the fierce warrior. Astrid responds with a bright, heartwarming smile, reassuring him that caring for them is her ultimate duty. Stepping out of the infirmary, the doctor heads down the corridor to deliver the news to their black-haired commander. Gede and another helper look up in sheer terror as Astrid approaches, their pale faces signaling a new crisis. Sensing their panic, Astrid asks if Jin is currently asleep, but Gede struggles to find the words to answer. Inside the bedroom, the black-haired commander lies dazed and sweating profusely, gripped by a violent, agonizing fever. Gede desperately reveals that the commander's high fever has not subsided since dawn, striking terror into the doctor's heart. The devastating news hangs heavily in the air as Astrid struggles to process the sudden decline of their leader. Turning quickly, Astrid demands to know exactly when the severe fever spike began. She covers her face in deep frustration upon learning that Gede was strictly ordered by Jin to keep his illness a secret. Astrid walks into the dark bedroom, her heart breaking as she sees the physical toll of leadership taking over Jin's body. She barks out orders to the companions, who immediately rush off to gather clean water and medical supplies. Before she can begin her treatment, a weak, trembling hand reaches up from the bed and gently grasps her fingers. Jin slowly opens his eyes, looking up at her with a dazed, feverish gaze as he murmurs her name. The weakened commander weakly clutches the fabric of her green dress, desperately seeking her comforting presence. Astrid looks down at him with tears welling in her eyes, gently questioning why he didn't call for her help sooner. Filled with deep regret, the black-haired commander weakly apologizes for causing his dedicated doctor so much worry. Astrid covers her face in sorrow, devastated that a man fighting for his life is apologizing to her instead. Sinking deeper into despair, Astrid realizes that his attempt to hide his suffering hurts her far more than the illness itself. Jin gazes up at her with profound warmth and affection, softly calling her name once more. He gently reaches up to touch her face, weakly pleading with her not to fall ill herself. Astrid closes her eyes, weeping silently as she leans into the gentle warmth of his hand on her cheek. Despite his agonizing pain, the commander offers her a soft, reassuring smile to ease her crying. Meanwhile, back in the quiet recovery ward, the silver-haired knight sits upright, lost in his own thoughts. Richard slowly clenches his hand into a tight fist as he reflects on his failure and his feelings. A vivid memory of his awkward interaction with the brown-haired doctor flashes through his mind. The quiet knight looks down with a solemn expression, deeply contemplating his connection to her. Suddenly, a voice calling out to him breaks his train of thought, snapping him back to the present reality. Deeply troubled, the orange-haired assistant Louis hangs her head in quiet, agonizing guilt. Clasping her trembling hands, Louis looks up in absolute despair, questioning if the weapon she crafted was the one that nearly ended the knight's life. The agonizing weight of guilt crushes Louis as she bitterly regrets ever inventing such a devastating, destructive firearm. Breaking through her spiral of despair, a gentle hand reaches out to reassure Louis that she has absolutely no reason to apologize. The silver-haired knight Richard speaks softly, desperately trying to lift the crushing burden of guilt from the young assistant's shoulders. Flashback reveals the true power of her creations, showing how her innovative designs actually saved the knight's line countless times in battle. Richard firmly asserts that his severe injuries are entirely his own failing and have absolutely nothing to do with her craftsmanship. Astrid, the brown-haired doctor in a green dress, steps forward to cut through the heavy emotional tension and check on the recovering warrior. A familiar, comforting symbol of hope is revealed as the doctor prepares to return a small, treasured lion plush keychain. Louis steps forward, nervously apologizing because she washed the precious plush but simply could not wash out the dark bloodstains. Richard gently cradles the worn toy against his chest, expressing his sincere gratitude for her kindness. Squeezing the tiny plush tightly, the fierce knight is suddenly struck by a wave of self-loathing, cursing his own physical weakness. A traumatic memory flashes back as the devastating impact of the high-caliber bullet tears straight through his chest. The cold touch of death closes in as the knight's vision begins to fade into complete and utter darkness. In what he believed were his final moments, a beautiful vision of Astrid's warm, comforting smile suddenly flashes through his mind. Bleeding out on the cold stone floor, the dying knight is left questioning his deepest, unexpressed feelings for the dedicated doctor. Back in the present, Richard looks down at the stained plush, finding a tragic reflection of his own battered, scarred existence. Suddenly, the door bursts open as Astrid erupts in pure, fiery anger at her next stubborn patient. Caught red-handed, the black-haired Commander Jin sweat drops and stammers out a weak excuse for sneaking out of bed to work. A fit of violent coughing instantly proves Astrid's point as she furiously lectures the commander for neglecting his recovery. A sudden knock on the bedroom door interrupts the heated argument, prompting Jin to ask if Gede has arrived. The door is forcefully thrown open as a bandaged Richard enters, demanding to speak with the commander immediately. Astrid turns her intense rage toward the reckless knight, screaming in sheer disbelief that another patient has abandoned his bed. Richard raises a defensive hand, weakly promising his furious doctor that he has no intention of doing anything strenuous. Astrid screams in absolute exasperation, pointing out that simply standing up is already far too strenuous for a man who almost died. Richard's eyes widen in surprise as he is suddenly caught off guard by her fierce, unyielding protectiveness. The tension in the room shifts as Astrid stands guard, monitoring both stubborn workaholics with a watchful eye. Looking down in solemn regret, the silver-haired knight softly apologizes to Jin for causing so much distress. Astrid chides the knight's formal apology, reminding him that the commander was so worried about him that he nearly collapsed. Richard absorbs her sharp words in silence, deeply moved by the sheer depth of their concern for his life. He glances aside as he prepares to address the dark, unresolved details of his near-fatal encounter. Richard recalls how deeply the black-haired commander had worried, his mind flashing back to Jin's anxious pacing. Flashing a reassuring, gentle smile, the legendary knight insists to his leader that his injuries are truly nothing serious. Jin lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh, deeply skeptical of the knight's attempt to play down his brush with death. Turning completely serious, Richard prepares to deliver the critical, terrifying intelligence he uncovered in the shadows. Gripping his bandaged shoulder, the knight steels his resolve to explain the horrifying chain of events that led to his defeat. The grim discussion shifts to the Merchant Guild, where a dangerous web of betrayal is beginning to unravel. A chaotic flashback reveals the exact moment Richard's combat unit intercepted the traitorous Todd attempting to flee the city. Caught with no escape, Todd pulled a lethal executive pistol and shot the silver-haired knight at point-blank range. Jin stares back in flat disbelief, dryly pointing out that a gunshot to the chest is anything but nothing serious. Sitting quietly in the corner, Astrid mentally sighs, realizing the knight is deliberately trying to change the subject. Shifting to urgent strategy, Jin outlines the desperate need to disband Todd's corrupt guild and secure a new spice distribution line. Astrid buries her face in her hands, completely overwhelmed by the unstoppable work ethic of these two stubborn leaders. Her eyes lock onto a crucial detail as Jin mentions established trade routes monopolized by Count Escup. The mention of the name sends a violent shockwave through Astrid, prompting her to leap to her feet in absolute disbelief. Gasping in sudden realization, Astrid struggles to process the immense significance of Count Escup's sudden involvement. A brilliant spark of hope ignites in Astrid's eyes, leaving Jin looking back at her in complete, quiet bewilderment. The doctor's mind races back to her knowledge of the original novel, recalling a legendary, trailblazing female count who defied all odds. She remembers the critical plot details of Count Favia Escup, the brilliant figure destined to uncover the brewing war and initiate first contact. Astrid smiles mischievously as she realizes this timeline shifts mean Favia's father is still the reigning count, opening a massive tactical opportunity. A sudden realization strikes our brilliant doctor as she recalls key novel details that could completely turn the tide of their rebellion. Sensing her hesitation, the black-haired commander asks if she has something to say, prompting her to nervously gather her thoughts. Astrid bravely suggests a rumor that Count Eskub's daughter might hold favorable feelings toward the Liberator's noble cause. She immediately panics internally, desperately hoping her fabricated excuse about a simple rumor is believable enough to satisfy him. Under Jin's intense searching gaze, Astrid's sweat drops, realizing that poking too deep might land her in hot water. The commander contemplates the risky lead, resolving to investigate this potential connection much more closely. The silver-haired knight smiles warmly, thoroughly relieved to see the heavy strategic tension finally dissipate. Suddenly, a wave of sheer exhaustion washes over Astrid, leaving her dizzy and on the verge of collapsing. Jin rushes forward and catches her in his arms, frantically asking if his dedicated doctor is all right. Realizing how heavily overworked she is, the commander declares that she must have an assistant assigned to help her. Astrid's eyes widen in absolute horror as she imagines the chaotic complications of getting a medical partner. She envisions a snobbish licensed elder physician looking down on her for practicing medicine without formal credentials. Astrid explains her dilemma, pointing out that prideful licensed doctors would never work under an unlicensed practitioner. The black-haired commander crosses his arms, fully understanding her concerns and looking for an alternate solution. Jin offers a brilliant compromise, promising to recruit a highly capable non-medical helper instead. Astrid gratefully accepts his idea while Jin proudly takes credit, leaving the silver-haired knight quietly amused. The scene shifts as Jin presents a line of eager volunteers, inviting Astrid to choose her new assistant. Astrid stands completely shocked, sweat dropping at the sheer lengths the commander went to find her help. A young, sandy-haired boy blushes deeply as he prepares to introduce himself to the legendary doctor. He eagerly introduces himself as Eddie Alfeo, his voice filled with nervous excitement. Astrid is taken aback by his family name, instantly recognizing his noble lineage. Jin explains that Eddie is the son of a late baron who volunteered to join the cause after losing his parents. While Jin praises the 17-year-old's bright mind, Astrid worries about putting a minor through such grueling labor. Eddie eagerly steps forward, exclaiming his profound admiration for the doctor's incredible life-saving reputation.
He passionately begged her to take him on as a student and teach him her advanced medical arts.
The other candidates quietly slip away as the young noble's relentless passion instantly secures him the job. Jin enthusiastically agrees to let Eddie help, causing the young boy's face to light up with pure shock and joy. Astrid smiles warmly at her new apprentice, kindly asking if she can call him by his first name. She extends a welcoming hand, offering a fresh start to their promising medical partnership. Eddie eagerly clasps her hand with both of his, blushing furiously at the honor of working alongside her. Astrid beams with a cute smile, though she silently hopes she made the right choice in hiring him. Zooming out, Astrid announces that Eddie's formal training will begin first thing tomorrow morning. Eddie desperately pleads to start immediately so he can be useful, prompting an amused chuckle from Jin. Astrid gladly welcomes his help starting today, while Jin happily notes how perfectly their plans have aligned. The focus shifts to the medical tray as Astrid prepares to discharge the rapidly recovering silver-haired knight. While Richard buttons his shirt over his bandaged chest, Astrid instructs him to return twice daily for dressing changes. The knight bows in deep gratitude for his life, but Astrid playfully brushes it off as merely doing her job. Later, Astrid walks with Eddie, teasing her eager new assistant about his immense excitement for his first day. Suddenly, both of them stop dead in their tracks, their faces lighting up in absolute shock at a sudden medical question. Eddie questions why she stitched a major wound shut, noting that closed external wounds are highly prone to infection. Astrid confidently explains that maintaining strict sanitary conditions completely prevents the risk of infection. She teaches him that closing a clean wound is actually far safer than leaving it open to the elements. Eddie stares at her with glittering, starstruck eyes, completely blown away by her revolutionary medical expertise. Astrid smiles proudly, highly impressed by her new assistant's sharp mind and existing medical knowledge. She then gently questions why a noble like him would choose to volunteer for such a dangerous rebellion. Eddie looks down with a wistful smile, softly explaining that he is no longer considered a noble. He reveals the tragic history of how a greedy relative seized his title and family inheritance after his parents passed away. Despite his hardships, Eddie asserts his strong alignment with the Liberator's dream of a world free from discrimination. He clenches his fists, expressing his deep honor at being able to stand alongside the rebels. Astrid gazes at him with quiet admiration, deeply moved by the young man's extraordinary resolve and pure heart. Just as Astrid begins to adjust to her demanding new role, an unexpected guest is about to shatter her daily routine. Suddenly, the door flies open as an orange-haired girl bursts in, frantically searching for the doctor. Astrid leaps to her feet, startled by the girl's sudden panic and asking what could possibly be wrong. Clenching a brown sack tightly, the young girl hesitates to reveal her mysterious hidden cargo. Unwrapping the fabric reveals a tiny white cat crying in distress, having collapsed near an excavation site. The orange-haired girl explains the creature likely became trapped in the labyrinthine underground city, sparking Astrid's deep concern. Relieved that help is finally at hand, the young crew members celebrate the doctor's immediate willingness to help. Noting the feline's immense terror, Astrid politely requests that everyone step outside so she can work in peace. Left alone, the brilliant physician faces a daunting new challenge as she prepares to treat her very first animal. Steeling her nerves, Astrid snaps on her medical gloves, determined to give the creature the best care possible. Gently lifting the trembling cat, she begins to examine its tiny, fragile body for any unseen injuries. Astrid pauses in complete shock, noticing the cat's bizarre, glittering green eyes that seem entirely unnatural. Opening the door, she quickly summons her assistants back inside to consult them on her strange discovery. Pointing toward the feline's eyes, Astrid asks if they can see the peculiar jewel-like shard glittering within. The young beast continues to hiss defensively, completely uncooperative despite Astrid's gentle attempts to inspect it. Realizing even her knowledgeable apprentice Eddie is clueless, Astrid deduces this creature is far from ordinary. To keep the feisty patient from scratching, the doctor prepares a soft, flower-shaped protective collar. As the cat peacefully dines, Jean enters the room, highly curious about how such a rare beast ended up underground. The dark-haired commander reveals that this is actually a legendary scent forest cat native to a distant region. Jin recalls how these mystical creatures were once famed for their stunning jewel-like eyes. A tragic flashback shows how greedy nobles ruthlessly hunted the beautiful species into near extinction decades ago. Astrid is absolutely stunned to learn she is currently treating a highly endangered, legally protected species. She suggests returning the wild creature to nature, though she knows it is still far too weak to survive on its own. Suddenly, the tiny cat gently reaches out, placing a soft bandaged paw directly against Astrid's hand. Sensing the magical connection, Jin warmly suggests that the doctor should permanently keep her new companion. He warns that if they let it go, a noble might catch it and keep it as a pampered pet. Or worse, an unlucky encounter could leave the poor creature stuffed as a taxidermy trophy, horrifying Astrid. Horrified by the grim alternative, Astrid fiercely embraces the cat and resolves to personally protect it from danger. Smiling at her warm-hearted decision, the commander asks what she plans to name her newly adopted companion. Astrid holds the cat up, carefully considering what name would best suit her adorable new pet. The cat's dazzling emerald green eyes sparkle in the light, offering a brilliant clue for its identity. Astrid enthusiastically suggests the name Fluffy, prompting Jin to burst out laughing at the uncreative choice. The cat screams in sheer offended outrage, completely rejecting the embarrassing moniker. Realizing she needs a much better name, Astrid quickly retracts her suggestion and searches her mind again. Staring at the cat's emerald eyes, she is suddenly reminded of a gorgeous, gleaming peridot gemstone. Astrid proudly proposes the name Perry, finding it a perfect match for those brilliant green eyes. The cat lets out a happy meow, clearly approving of the elegant and fitting new name. Astrid joyfully cradles Perry in her arms, looking forward to their brand new life together as Jin watches. But their peaceful days are short-lived, as chaotic crashing sounds suddenly echo throughout the clinic. Wearing a bright yellow dress, Astrid frantically chases Perry, who has stolen her stethoscope and ruined her medical files. The orange-haired girl and a silver-haired youth named Rick peek inside, announcing it's time for the commander's checkup. Seizing the perfect opportunity, Astrid desperately hands the hyperactive cat over to them, begging for their help. While Rick sweat drops at the cat's explosive energy, the orange-haired girl finds the chaotic scene incredibly adorable. Cradling the fussy Perry in his arms, the purple-eyed boy promises to watch over the mischievous pet. He kindly tells the doctor not to worry and to focus entirely on her critical rounds. Heading down the grand hallway, Astrid smiles, amused that the prickly Rick has such a soft spot for cute animals. Arriving at her destination, Astrid opens the door to announce her arrival for the commander's morning checkup. She steps inside, only to find the silver-haired knight Richheart already visiting Jin's bedside. Astrid hesitantly offers to return later, but a smiling Jin insists he has been eagerly waiting for her arrival. With a gentle gesture, the commander invites his dedicated doctor to have a seat, setting the stage for a critical conversation. Gathering around the commander's bedside, the atmosphere thickens as Jin requests their urgent counsel. The silver-haired knight questions if Jin is truly healthy enough to risk leaving the safety of the underground city. Astrid reacts with absolute shock at the sudden suggestion of a journey. Jin explains that a count's daughter favors their rebellion, prompting Astrid to question her connection to their travel plans. Jin reveals that this influential noblewoman has demanded a personal meeting with him and Richard. Astrid silently worries about the sheer risk of Jin leaving their secret hideout. She fears that exposing the leader of the rebellion could invite absolute disaster. Warning of a potential trap, Astrid is met with Jin's calm insistence that they must simply proceed with extreme caution. Jin outlines why trading with Sorte is critical after the recent dismantling of Toad's guild. A map highlights how Toad once monopolized domestic trade by importing goods from the island of Murmur. He explains that carving out new routes is nearly impossible with noble monopolies blocking their path. He details how the Empire's powerful naval commander tightly controls maritime trade, leaving them with very few options. By trading with Sorte instead, Jin counts two massive advantages that could turn the tide of their struggle. A map reveals the fragile non-aggression pact between Sorte and Regnumia, which could shatter at any moment. Jin plans to use a merchant guild as a front to monitor Sorte's military movements and rebuild their funds.
Astrid is stunned to realize Jin is perfectly predicting the exact events of the original story.
Clenching her clipboard, her medical instincts trigger a wave of intense anxiety. She knows that chronic respiratory disease makes even a simple cold life-threatening for him. Astrid urgently warns that traveling to Sorte's freezing winter climate poses a fatal risk to Jin's lungs.
The room falls silent as the weight of her medical warning hangs heavily over them.
Richard immediately backs the doctor, fiercely opposing any trip that threatens Jin's fragile health.
Seeing their unified stance, Jin reluctantly agrees to propose a much safer meeting spot instead. Unwilling to take any chances, Astrid boldly declares that a patient cannot possibly travel without their personal physician.
Surprised but pleased, Jin warmly agrees to have her accompany him on the journey.
Astrid sighs in massive relief, glad she can personally monitor his condition.
Suddenly, Jin's expression turns grave as he announces a far more serious matter they must discuss.
Astrid's heart stops as she braces herself for another crisis.
Jin gazes at her with a soft, mysterious smile that only intensifies her suspense.
She holds her breath, desperately wondering what catastrophic news he is about to drop.
The commander lingers in silence, keeping his thoughts close to his chest.
Unable to bear the tension any longer, Astrid nervously begs him to speak. Jin's lips part as the highly anticipated revelation finally begins.
He whispers his opening words, drawing her in even closer.
Suddenly, Jin completely breaks the tension by asking when they can resume their daily walks together.
Astrid stands frozen in utter disbelief at his surprisingly casual request. Jin playfully defends himself, reminding her that she was the one who prescribed daily sunlight for his recovery.
Astrid hesitates, deeply worried that going outside will expose his secret location to their enemies.
Jin gently reassures her that they will take extra precautions to stay hidden this time. He suggests constantly switching their walking routes to avoid any potential ambush.
Looking for a second opinion, Astrid glances over at Rickard for his thoughts. Richard, shrugging playfully, agrees that the outdoor exercise is actually highly beneficial for the commander's healing. Realizing she is outnumbered, Astrid reluctantly agrees on the condition that he remains extremely careful. Jin beams with radiant, flower-filled joy at her hard-won approval. Walking down the hallway later, Astrid feels a sense of relief that the walk dilemma is resolved. Her thoughts quickly drift to her upcoming, highly anticipated meeting with the elusive Favia. She recalls from the novel that Favia is a powerful ally who ultimately helps liberate the Empire. Flashback visions depict the legendary noblewoman's striking red hair and golden eyes. Astrid remembers Favia's stunning beauty and deep compassion for the oppressed. She envisions Favia kissing Jin's hand, remembering her profound loyalty to the commander in the original story. Suddenly, Astrid stops dead in her tracks as a chilling new thought halts her steps. A sudden realization hits Astrid like a lightning bolt as she feels a wave of pure, possessive jealousy. Her inner peace completely shatters as she mentally screams at her own pathetic insecurity. While her apprentice watches in sheer confusion, Astrid collapses in an absolute spiral of romantic anxiety. Her cheeks flush bright crimson as she desperately hides her face in overwhelming embarrassment.
Shaking off her doubts, Astrid rises to prioritize her duty as the commander's personal physician.
Clenching her fist, she vows to ensure Jin's physical health above all else. Shifting gears, a beautiful morning dawns over a lush, sunlit forest canopy. Light footsteps step carefully onto the forest floor as their secret excursion begins. Astrid quickly lunges forward to restrain a hyperactive blonde boy before he runs into danger. The young boy gratefully thanks the doctor as she warmly reassures him of his safety. Watching Jin walk ahead, Astrid silently worries if the rough forest path is too strenuous. Richard's sweat drops as he sheepishly apologizes for choosing such a difficult walking route. Jin turns back with a stubborn, defensive pout, insisting he is walking perfectly fine. The energetic blonde boy proudly pipes up that he can also walk without help. The little child beams with adorable, fiery determination to prove his independence. Astrid smiles warmly at their stubbornness, agreeing to continue as long as they stay careful. Parting the heavy foliage, Jin prepares to reveal a hidden sanctuary. A breathtaking, sun-drenched meadow filled with blooming wildflowers opens up before them. The trio stands in absolute awe of the stunning, peaceful paradise. Breaking all military decorum, the exhausted commander happily collapses backward into the soft grass. Astrid stands completely frozen in absolute sweat-dropping bewilderment at his casual behavior. Driven by pure excitement, the blonde boy rushes forward to join the commander in the grass. Realizing resistance is futile, Astrid decides to throw caution to the wind and join them. Basking in the sun, the three lie side by side on the grassy meadow, enjoying a moment of pure peace. As Jin rests peacefully, a vigilant silhouette stands watch over their sanctuary. Richard remains highly alert, refusing to let his guard down for a single second. Looking down at his companions, Richard listens as they playfully promise to stand guard next time. Walking back side by side, Astrid expresses her deep gratitude for the wonderfully refreshing break. Suddenly, an icy wave of shock freezes Astrid and Jin in their tracks. The little blonde boy frantically pats his chest, realizing something precious have vanished. With tears streaming down his face, he cries out that his treasured necklace is gone. Astrid instantly recognizes the wooden lily keepsake from the tragic original timeline of the novel.
She remembers how the boy falsely believed a murdered man holding the same token was his father. Astrid immediately kneels down, gently asking if the lost wooden medal is deeply important to him. Overwhelmed by grief, the crying boy hesitates as painful memories wash over him.
Astrid stands up with fiery determination, promising they will search the entire forest to find it.
Without wasting a second, Richard immediately begins searching through the thick green bushes.
Jen holds the boy's hand, firmly declaring that they cannot afford to lose such a vital treasure. Suddenly, the silver-haired knight spots a clue glittering in the foliage and gasps. Richard proudly holds up the recovered wooden lily medallion, bringing immediate relief to the group. The boy's tearful face completely lights up with overwhelming radiant happiness. Astrid beams with deep warmth, celebrating the miraculous recovery of his precious keepsake. Holding his hand, she happily leads the relieved young boy back toward home. But their peaceful return halts as Jin's keen eyes suddenly lock onto the child's neck. The commander's expression turns deadly serious as he calls out to stop the boy. The intricately carved wooden lily medal hangs clearly against the child's chest. Kneeling down, Jin gently holds the wooden keepsake and demands to know where he got it. Clutching the medallion tightly, the nervous child prepares to reveal his mysterious past. Under Jin's intense gaze, the boy honestly admits he has owned it for as long as he can remember. He sadly reveals that the token has been his only connection to his forgotten origins. Puzzled by the sudden heavy silence, Astrid tilts her head in utter confusion. Catching his dark expression, Astrid quickly asks Jin what is wrong, breaking him out of his deep trance. Brushing off his anxiety, Jin suggests they immediately head back to the safety of the underground city. As they walk, Astrid's mind races, desperately wondering what heavy thoughts are troubling her commander so deeply. Back in their study, a striking revelation drops as Jin contemplates that rodent might actually be of noble birth. Looking over the evidence, Astrid realizes that only elite noble houses possess such intricately designed family crests. The pieces of the puzzle begin to connect as they study the intricate design of the wooden medal. Astrid points out the sheer sophistication of the carving, comparing it to an elite custom-made pendant. Jin theorizes that the boy's parents deliberately chose wood, carefully considering the harsh environment where their son would have to survive. A dark flashback reveals that a gold or jeweled keepsake would have painted a target on the helpless child's back. Crafted from rare fine wood, the medallion's delicate details were designed to hide its true royal worth from common thieves. The beautifully carved lily emblem holds the secret to the boy's long-lost family lineage. With newfound hope, Astrid eagerly asks Jin if he can identify the specific noble family behind the crest. To her dismay, Jin admits his knowledge of minor aristocratic crests is highly limited. In a rare moment of levity, Astrid playfully teases the brilliant commander for actually having a gap in his knowledge. The lightheartedness fades as Astrid deeply contemplates who in their secret network could decipher this mystery. Astrid suddenly suggests consulting Eddie, a former noble who might possess the exact answers they desperately need. Summoned to the study, Eddie sheepishly admits he cannot identify the specific crest, leaving them back at square one. Bidding them a cheerful farewell, Eddie steps out and shuts the door, leaving them to their thoughts. Clutching her bag, Astrid laments the difficulty of their search while Jin resolves to keep digging for clues. The atmosphere grows somber as Jin confesses his deep hesitation, instantly raising Astrid's medical instincts. A sudden wave of apprehension washes over Astrid as she braces herself for his explanation. Jin wonders if the young boy truly desires to unearth his origins and seek out his birth parents. Astrid sadly agrees, noting that the traumatized boy has never once tried to investigate the medallion before. Astrid remembers the novel's original tragic timeline where a mysterious seeker was brutally murdered before ever reuniting with the boy. Despite the dark memories, Astrid takes comfort in knowing that someone out there is desperately searching for Rodin. She silently vows to alter fate and ensure that the boy safely reunites with his devoted searcher this time. Imagining the young boy's radiant, pure happiness fuels her determination to change the dark future. Suddenly, Jen snaps the research book shut, signaling that it is time to pivot back to their main mission. Turning back to Astrid, the commander prepares to finalize the high-stakes logistics of their upcoming journey. Suddenly, Richard peeks into the room with a cheerful grin, wondering what the two are scheming. The duo turns to greet the silver-haired knight, ready to lay out the final itinerary. Leaning back, Jin smirks as he notes that their dangerous plans are finally progressing smoothly. Jin playfully questions if Astrid still intends to join the voyage, prompting her to fiercely assert her dedication. Gathering around the map-laden desk, the trio prepares to discuss the exact timeline of their stealth mission. Jin outlines that Croy acts as a vital transit hub, limiting their round-trip travel to just 4 days. Richard estimates a 3-day stay in the hub, bringing the total duration of their secret excursion to 1 week. While Rickard urges her to pack, Astrid's medical mind worries if Jin's fragile health can withstand the grueling trek. The tension skyrockets as Jin calmly delivers the ultimate bombshell. They are departing tomorrow morning. A wave of sheer panic ripples through the room at the impossibly tight schedule. Eddie's jaw hits the floor in complete shock, completely blindsided by the sudden lightning-fast departure. Grabbing his hands, Astrid passionately reassures the panicked helper that he is more than ready for this responsibility. Flashing a confident thumbs up, she praises his rapid progress and guarantees he will manage flawlessly. Tears of gratitude streaming down his face, Eddie vows to perform his duties perfectly in her absence. Leaving the room, Astrid breathes a sigh of relief for Eddie, only for a new worry about Perry to strike. News of the sudden departure spreads like wildfire, prompting immediate concern from their allies. Astrid formally requests her trusted colleagues to assume care of her precious companion Perry during her absence. Her young apprentice blushes brightly as he carefully cradles the fluffy white kitten in his arms.
Astrid playfully accuses him of being secretly thrilled by her temporary departure, sending him into a stuttering frenzy.
He frantically protests her teasing, leaving the doctor with a final warm memory before facing the looming perils of the North. After a chaotic crisis, the tension breaks as an orange-haired companion lightheartedly teases the flustered silver-haired companion Richard, who clutches a white cat in extreme embarrassment. Astrid bids a tender farewell to her beloved white cat, Perry, gently holding its paw while Richard looks on with quiet affection. Stepping away, Astrid battles a heavy wave of sadness at having to leave her precious feline companion behind. She walks down the hallway, mentally preparing her packing list of crucial medicines and emergency supplies. Her preparations are suddenly interrupted when an urgent voice calls out to her from behind. The adorable blonde boy, Rodent, comes sprinting down the corridor with absolute excitement in his eyes. He leaps into Astrid's arms for a tight, tearful hug after learning she will be leaving the estate for a while. Astrid warmly embraces the emotional boy, offering him comfort and reassurance. The young boy clings to her tightly, unwilling to let his beloved doctor go so easily. Gently brushing his hair, Astrid tries to soothe the crime boy with tender affection. The boy slowly calms down, looking up at her with clear, trusting green eyes.
Seeing him so vulnerable, Astrid realizes that this quiet moment is the perfect opportunity to uncover a long-hidden secret.
Dropping to her knees, she takes his hands in hers to ask him a deeply serious question. She gazes at him with intense determination, ready to finally dig into his mysterious past. Holding his small hands gently, she prepares to bring up the item he has been hiding.
Astrid asks why he kept his wooden necklace hidden all this time, causing the boy to visibly flinch in surprise.
She gently explains that sharing the necklace might have helped him locate his biological parents. The boy hesitantly reaches for the hidden accessory, preparing to reveal its true origin. He recalls a warm, nostalgic memory of the kind elderly woman who took care of him during his early years. He remembers her final, strict warning before her passing to never show the necklace to anyone else. Stunned by the sudden revelation, Astrid is left completely speechless by the heavy secret. She softly questions if it is truly safe for him to trust her, Jin, and Richard with its existence. The boy warmly reassures her that he has absolute, unwavering faith in all of them. A bright, genuine smile returns to his face, cementing their deep and beautiful bond of trust. Overjoyed by his innocence and trust, Astrid beams with a warm, relieved smile. Bidding him a final, cheerful farewell, Astrid promises to return to him safely. Back in her room, Astrid closes her drawer while deeply contemplating the mysterious meaning behind the necklace's unique crest. Staring at a leaf-wrapped package on the floor, she wonders why the elderly woman forbade him from showing it and who could be hunting for him. Sitting among scattered documents, she realizes she is dealing with a secret far larger than she ever anticipated. Suddenly, a large, dark-colored trunk is placed before her as a helpful solution is offered. Astrid looks up in complete surprise, questioning what could be inside the massive case. The long-haired Commander Jin unbuttons his shirt while introducing the tools of disguise. He humorously reminds a sweating Astrid that they are heavily targeted fugitives with massive bounties on their heads. Jin points her toward a private dressing room to prepare her new identity and comfort. Inside the case, rows of mysterious potions and cosmetics stand ready for a dramatic transformation. Sitting before her mirror, Astrid realizes with a sigh that she has not worn makeup since entering this new body. She delicately picks up a makeup brush, ready to begin the complex process. Staring at her reflection, she humorously notes her complete lack of romantic experience in her past life. A wild, hilarious vision of herself as a glamorous leopard print-wearing diva flashes through her mind. Shaking off the ridiculous fantasy, she applies a sharp, dramatic line of eyeliner to completely alter her gentle features. She carefully paints on a small beauty mark near her eye to serve as the perfect finishing touch. The stunning transformation is complete, revealing Astrid disguised with elegant black hair and piercing features. She adjusts her pristine white and purple traveling outfit, fitting her new disguised identity flawlessly. Staring at her reflection, she sighs at her inability to make her cute face look truly menacing. She takes one final, critical look in the mirror before heading out. Opening the dressing room door, Astrid announces she is ready, only to gasp in sheer astonishment at what lies ahead. Richard stands before her completely transformed, disguised as an elegant gentleman with brown hair and a monocle. While a blushing Richard begs her not to look too closely, Astrid excitedly praises his incredibly realistic new look. Their banter is interrupted as the final member of their group approaches, asking if they are ready to depart. Taking a firm, confident step forward, the group officially embarks on their dangerous undercover journey. The game of deception officially begins as a strikingly handsome blonde-haired gentleman emerges from the shadows. Astrid is completely starstruck by Jin's dashing new disguise, much to Richard's silent exasperation.
The unexpected arrival of Gede surprises Astrid as he eagerly volunteers to carry her heavy bags.
With a determined promise to do his absolute best, Gede officially joins their dangerous undercover mission. Stepping forward with absolute resolve, the disguised companions prepare to depart on their journey. Underneath her confident facade, Astrid battles a sudden wave of nervous anticipation. An incredibly luxurious gold-trimmed carriage stands ready, perfectly fitting their elaborate cover story as wealthy merchants. Looking at their grand transport, Astrid cannot help but feel a thrilling spark of excitement. Behaving like a true nobleman, Richard politely offers a hand to help the mesmerized doctor ascend. She takes his hand, stepping forward into their high-stakes roleplay. A hilariously romantic fantasy flashes through Astrid's mind as she imagines Jin carrying her instead. Inside the carriage, the blonde commander shifts uncomfortably, letting out a low grunt of dissatisfaction. Jin glares sideways with an irritated expression, clearly displeased with the current seating arrangements. Astrid is left completely baffled, wondering what could have possibly ruined his mood so quickly. She assumes his newly dyed blonde locks are simply making him look more cynical and menacing. Brushing off his irritation, Astrid happily reveals that this is her very first trip outside her home city. Blushing slightly, the commander demands they use aliases, instructing her to call him Ned. Richard playfully slides in next to Jin, cheerfully introducing his own elegant alias, Damon. Caught up in the excitement, Astrid eagerly asks what her secret codename will be. Her excitement quickly deflates when she realizes her undercover alias is simply Doctor. With a fierce crack of the reins, Gede drives the carriage forward as their journey begins. Peering out the window, Astrid reminds herself of the danger despite the thrilling scenery. The vast, beautiful sky fills her with pure wonder as they leave the underground behind. Exhausted from the journey, Astrid quietly drifts off to sleep, resting her head on Jin's shoulder. She slowly wakes up from her peaceful slumber, still half asleep and disoriented. She opens her eyes to find Jin's face shockingly close as he softly announces their arrival. The fierce commander gazes down at her with an incredibly soft, gentle smile that melts her heart. Shaking off her sleepiness, she blinks in disbelief as the reality of their close contact sinks in. His warm, dazzling gaze completely paralyzes her, catching her completely off guard. Flustered beyond belief, Astrid stammers in utter panic as Jin looks on in amusement. She frantically backpedals, waving her arms in a desperate attempt to hide her embarrassment.
Her heart races as she silently panics over how comfortably she had snuggled up to him.
A sudden wave of panic hits her as a crucial question flashes through her mind. She frantically scans the carriage, terrified that Richard might have witnessed her embarrassing display. Jin reassures her that Richard moved outside to sit with Gede hours ago due to lack of space. Although embarrassed, Astrid checks if she was too heavy, only for Jin to teasingly dismiss her weight. Jin steps out of the carriage first, extending a polite invitation to his companion. Standing in the warm evening glow, the blonde commander gently warns her to watch her step in the dark. Astrid beams with pure joy, completely captivated by his unexpected chivalry. Outside, a magnificent illuminated fountain serves as the grand entrance to their destination. Rising majestically against the night sky is the breathtaking Ribera Hotel, their luxurious safe house. Astrid immediately recognizes the establishment as the nation's most famous and elite luxury hotel chain. Worried about their cover, she quietly questions if staying in such a high-profile location is truly safe. With a confident, knowing smirk, Jin casually reveals that he actually owns the entire luxury chain. Astrid casually nods along to his shocking confession, processing the unbelievable information in a daze. A hilarious speed of delayed realization hits her as she finally comprehends his massive wealth. She is left utterly flabbergasted, realizing the supposedly struggling commander is secretly a billionaire mogul. The grand, ornate doors swing open to reveal a dazzling interior dripping with absolute opulence. Bowing respectfully, the hotel staff warmly welcomes the disguised guildmaster to their finest quarters. Escorted by the head butler, the companions step deeper into the palace, but what hidden dangers await them inside these luxurious walls? Beneath the gilded ceiling of their luxurious safe house, the high-stakes game of deception begins as Astrid notes that the commander's room is conveniently next door. Standing right outside, she gently knocks to announce her arrival for his nightly medical checkup. Inside the room, the loyal head butler emotionally praises Jin's impressive recovery after so much hardship. Eavesdropping at the door, Astrid is shocked to discover the hotel manager is actually a secret agent for their cause. The manager notices her entrance and warmly turns to introduce the esteemed doctor to the room. Astrid becomes incredibly flustered as she is introduced by her legendary and prestigious title. Bowing deeply, the butler sincerely begs Astrid to continue protecting and caring for their beloved leader. Accepting the heavy responsibility with a warm smile, Astrid gladly promises to look after him. Examining her medical tools, she happily notes that the commander's physical health has vastly improved. Lounging in the comfortable suite, Astrid marvels at Jin's unbelievable luxury business empire. Jin explains that the luxury hotel serves as the ultimate spy network to gather crucial intelligence on the nobility. The commander kindly checks if she is comfortable, prompting Astrid to recall a sudden grievance. Astrid dramatically stands up to declare that there is indeed one massive issue keeping her awake. She hilariously laments the immense guilt of having multiple servants carry heavy bathwater just for her comfort. She sighs over how much simpler bathing was with the convenient plumbing of the underground city. Smiling warmly, Jin promises her that this hotel offers one spectacular advantage their old home never could. Taking her small hand in his, he gently leads her to show her a breathtaking secret. Stepping onto the grand balcony, Astrid gasps in pure wonder at the spectacular view waiting outside. A magnificent, star-filled night sky stretches out before them, completely clear of the underground's dark ceiling. Astrid is completely mesmerized by the celestial beauty, her eyes reflecting a brilliant starlight. Keeping his warm gaze fixed entirely on her instead of the stars, the commander softly agrees with her. Breaking the romantic spell, Astrid suddenly gasps as she remembers a special gift she prepared for him. With a brilliant smile, she presents him with a beautiful folded dark blue scarf. She thoughtfully explains that the nights have grown chilly and she wants to ensure he stays warm. Astrid steps close to delicately wrap the cozy accessory around the commander's neck. The sudden intimacy leaves both of them incredibly flustered as their blushing faces draw close. Clutching the warm fabric, a deeply touched Jin offers his most sincere gratitude. He quietly struggles with his emotions, wondering how he can ever deserve her constant kindness. Looking at her gentle profile, he silently acknowledges a profound debt he can never truly repay. Overwhelmed by his sincere words, Astrid hilariously punches his shoulder to hide her extreme embarrassment. She frantically rationalizes the gift as a purely medical precaution so he does not fall ill. The playful mood softens as Jin tenderly reaches out to brush her hair away. Underneath the endless canopy of stars, a quiet and profound bond strengthens between the two allies.
Shifting to the next morning, Astrid instantly senses a remarkably heavy and tense atmosphere in the grand halls.
Hurrying into the meeting room, she quickly apologizes to her companions for her lateness. The disguised leader gently directs her to take her seat as they prepare for a critical encounter. Richard adjusts his monocle and quietly reassures her that their highly anticipated contact will arrive shortly. Sitting in the grand armchair, Jin prepares himself to face their mysterious and powerful visitor. The butler's voice echoes through the room, formally announcing the grand arrival of Lady Favia Ecap. A pair of elegant brown riding boots stride confidently across the ornate rug. Staring toward the entrance, Astrid's eyes widen in sheer shock as she recognizes the visitor. Jin's breath hitches in visible panic as he realizes exactly who has just walked through the door. Stepping into the light is a striking red-haired warrior woman wearing a blue cape and high boots. The butler formally introduces their elite guest as the heavy double doors swing open. Standing with absolute poise, the fierce, golden-eyed commander gazes ahead with cool determination. Wearing his most charming, noble disguise, Jin greets her while introducing himself as the leader. Richard politely offers her a seat while Jin smoothly apologizes for not standing due to his feigned poor health. The red-haired warrior graciously accepts his excuse and takes her seat on the comfortable sofa. Smiling with hidden intent, Lady Favia admits she never expected to meet the legendary leader in person. She reveals her surprise that the King of the Underground is also the secret mastermind behind the Merchant Guild, setting the stage for a high-stakes negotiation. Determined to make this rare meeting count, the blonde Commander Jin suggestively steers the conversation straight to high-stakes business. Favia smiles brightly, warmly accepting his proposal to skip the pleasantries and begin their negotiations. High-value luxury goods represent a lucrative market highly restricted within a nation constantly focused on war. Highlighting the geopolitical risks, the trade conversation shifts to the strict limitations of weapon distribution. Caught completely off guard, Favia questions if they truly require an immense supply of magic stones immediately. Flashing a calculated smirk, Jin confidently confirms her suspicions about their urgent need. High in the remote mountains, the rare production of magic stones makes them a highly sought-after commodity. Deep in thought, Favia contemplates the massive strategic advantage of discovering a hidden magic stone vein. Count Ecap listens silently, his analytical gaze assessing the massive political weight of their trade proposal. Jin gestures confidently as he prepares to lay down his own terms for their high-stakes deal. The air grows tense as the discussion shifts toward a mysterious unspoken favor. Laughing off his own lack of noble pedigree, Jin plays down his influence to disarm his hosts. With a sharp look, Jin asks if she can sway Count Ecap to side with them. Exuding complete confidence, Favia assures him that her father will not be an obstacle in their plans. Seizing the momentum, she counters with her own request, balancing the power dynamic in the room. An icy dread grips Astrid as Favia suddenly questions how they uncovered her secret sympathy for the liberators. Sweating under pressure, Count Ecap highlights the extreme danger of exposing their revolutionary ideals to a noble. Jin hesitates as Astrid's eyes widen in sheer panic, realizing they might have pushed too far. Shrugging off the danger, Jin calmly asks if their motives truly matter as long as their goals align. Favia admits her own disdain for a society ruled purely by money and status, hinting at a shared ideology. Heart-racing, Astrid realizes Favia's hidden thoughts should have been completely impossible for an outsider to know. Sizing up her companion, Astrid begins to connect the dots of how this secret information was obtained. Favia points out that expressing such dangerous revolutionary ideas in public is normally an act of pure madness.
Jin smoothly deflects her questioning, refusing to betray his mysterious source of information. Amused, Favia pushes further, insisting her curiosity is harmless now that they are allies. Jin casts a silent warning glance at Astrid, who prepares herself to face the music. Stepping into the spotlight, Astrid steals her resolve and prepares to deliver her explanation. Favia stares in utter disbelief as Astrid steps forward to claim responsibility for the leak.
A heavy silence fills the room as Favia absorbs a shocking revelation.
Tension spikes as Favia formally requests a private audience with Astrid, leaving Jin on high alert. Jin carefully weighs the risks of leaving the two women alone together. Putting on a brave face, Astrid nervously assures Jin that she will be perfectly safe in Favia's company. Placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, Jin commands her to escape immediately if things turn dangerous. With a gentle nod, Astrid promises to stay vigilant under Favia's intense scrutiny. Favia watches them with quiet amusement, reassuring the protective commander that no harm will come to his companion. The heavy wooden door clicks shut, leaving the two women entirely alone. Dropping her formal guard, Favia introduces herself warmly as the head of the ecap merchant guild. Apologizing for her earlier skepticism, Favia begs to know how her secrets were uncovered. Astrid stammers nervously, frantically trying to construct a believable excuse on the fly. Astrid explains she learned of Favia's secret philanthropy, referencing her secret acts of charity. She recalls how Favia funded education for impoverished commoners unable to afford schooling. These secret missions to distribute medicine in the slums proved her noble character. Astrid confesses she assumed someone with such pure altruism would align with the liberators. Favia reacts with adorable confusion, shocked by the wild deduction. Realizing it was a massive gamble, Favia is stunned by Astrid's sheer audacity. Astrid holds her breath as Favia slowly confirms the wild guess was correct. Overjoyed, Favia showers Astrid with praise for her brilliant intuition. Finding a kindred spirit, Favia happily asks if they can speak casually as friends. Basking in her warmth, Astrid is completely captivated by Favia's radiant, genuine smile. As they bond, Astrid can't help but reflect on Jin's intense reaction during the negotiation. Astrid panics internally, realizing Jin has never treated her with such unyielding intensity before. Favia playfully calls out Astrid's completely transparent reaction, catching the nervous doctor totally off guard. The red-haired guild leader boldly declares she has zero interest in men prettier than herself.
Favia clarifies her true passions lie solely in revolutionary ideals and high-stakes commerce.
Astrid's face flushes a deep crimson as the sudden shocking revelations keep mounting. An explosive cry of disbelief echoes as the absolute absurdity of the situation sinks in. Standing guard outside, the blonde commander worries if his companion is truly managing in there alone.
Favia maintains her incredibly smug, self-assured smile, holding all the cards in this private chat.
The merchant queen reaffirms her absolute devotion to trade and rebellion over silly romantic pursuits. Favia delivers a direct tease about Jin's feelings, sending the doctor into a complete spiral of embarrassment. The sheer shock of the statement reverberates through the room like a thunderbolt. The blonde commander silently laments the predictable romantic tropes of holy maidens as he waits.
Astrid desperately stammers a protest, but Favia casually insists they drop formal titles and become close friends. Regaining her composure, Astrid nervously asks how Favia managed to uncover her deepest secrets.
Laughing, Favia admits she initially saw political intrigue, but quickly noticed Astrid's adorable passivity and love. Favia gleefully admits that teasing others about their love lives is far superior to dealing with her own. Softening the mood, Favia offers a playful wink of secrecy, earning a quiet sigh of gratitude from Astrid. Favia shifts the focus, revealing she has actually kept a close, curious eye on Astrid for quite some time. Favia praises Astrid's incredible resolve for thriving as a female doctor among the brutal and terrifying Banwall troops. Astrid sheepishly downplays her past achievements, surrounded by memories of her loyal, supportive companions. Favia looks down thoughtfully, noting how similar Astrid's struggle is to her own difficult path.
Astrid realizes Fabia's unbreakable strength comes from surviving years in a ruthless, male-dominated noble society.
Still puzzled, the doctor presses further, eager to learn exactly how Favia obtained her personal records. Favia joyfully drops the bombshell that Astrid is actually a highly wanted criminal with an astronomical bounty. Astrid completely breaks down in despair, horrified that her notorious reputation has reached the absolute edge of the empire. Finally opening the door, Astrid announces the private meeting is officially over, much to Jin's relief. Jin immediately searches her face for any signs of danger, demanding to know if she was harmed. Astrid squirms in sheer embarrassment, unable to look the handsome commander in the eye after Favia's teasing. Back in the study, Favia sinks into her chair with a long, exhausted sigh of relief. Her quiet moment is interrupted as a tall, green-suited man approaches her with formal respect. The elegant, glasses-wearing gentleman politely offers to escort her safely back to her private quarters. Favia's eyes light up with a genuine soft smile as she warmly accepts his kind offer. Watching them walk away together, Astrid instantly realizes the exact type of man that makes the fierce merchant queen melt. Favia suddenly pauses mid-stride, turning back to catch Astrid's knowing gaze. The merchant queen flashes one last radiant, brilliant smile, signaling a powerful new alliance. Waving a warm goodbye, Astrid bids farewell to their formidable new ally with a cheerful smile. With negotiations successfully wrapped up by mail, the team plans their next high-stakes moves. Showing a rare moment of vulnerability, Jin confesses his exhaustion and suggests a brief day of rest.
Jin pleasantly surprises Astrid by asking if she wants to explore the bustling, vibrant city of Croy. Astrid's eyes shine with pure excitement as she enthusiastically accepts his offer to sightsee together. Overwhelmed with silent emotions, Jin looks away as his heart skips a beat at her radiant smile.
Stepping onto the lively stone streets, Astrid is completely mesmerized by the sheer scale of the massive city. The irresistible scent of sizzling, freshly grilled meat skewers immediately catches the hungry doctor's attention.
Astrid stares at the delicious food with starry eyes, completely drooling as her mouth waters in anticipation.
Spotting her adorable hesitation, Jin asks if she wants some, prompting her to frantically deny her hunger. Jin quickly deduces her dilemma, realizing she does not possess even a single coin of her own.
Digging into his coat, Jin jokingly asks if she truly believed he would make her work without a salary.
With a warm, gentle smile, Jin hands over a bulging pouch of accumulated back pay he saved for her.
Astrid struggles to hold the incredibly heavy gold pouch, completely stunned by his massive generosity.
To her absolute disbelief, her new monthly salary is revealed to be a whopping 10 gold coins.
Shocked by his sheer generosity, Astrid cannot believe she was just handed 10 gold coins.
Astrid quickly calculates the conversion rate, realizing a single gold coin equals 6 months of manual labor. Shocked to her core, Astrid realizes her monthly salary is worth 600 million in her past world's currency. The math leads to a terrifying realization. Her active criminal bounty is worth an astronomical 3 billion. Shaking like a leaf, Astrid nervously asks Jin why he is paying her such a mind-boggling sum. Jin offers her a warm, reassuring smile as her panic continues to rise.
Even with his silent reassurance, Astrid stammers in disbelief, clutching her heavy fortune tightly.
Astrid cries comically, realizing trying to buy cheap skewers with a massive gold coin will leave her with a ridiculous amount of change. Jin suggests she use a single gold coin to shop and rest, while Astrid frantically begs him to believe it is more than enough. As they wander through the streets, Astrid suddenly spots something shimmering through a shop window, cutting her thoughts short.
A dazzling sparkle catches her eye from deep inside the boutique display.
Astrid stands utterly transfixed by a beautiful necklace displayed on the mannequin, while Jin watches her silent obsession in quiet confusion. Jin claims he is getting tired, prompting a flustered Astrid to immediately agree to head back to safety. Walking away, Astrid worries about Jin pushing his physical limits, though her heart still lingers on the beautiful jewel she left behind.
Astrid casts one final, longing look back at the sparkling window.
Back in her room, Astrid grabs her pouch, determined to purchase the unique necklace she suspects is a special item.
Overflowing with excitement, Astrid envisions how adorable the necklace will look on her beloved pet cat.
The silent room waits as she prepares to slip away on a secret shopping mission. Fired up with absolute determination, Astrid declares she must run back to the shop immediately before it is too late. To her absolute horror, the shopkeeper delivers the crushing news that the dazzling item was sold just moments prior. Slumped on the floor in deep regret, Astrid laments not buying the precious item when she first laid eyes on it. The shopkeeper offers a glimmer of hope, mentioning they have a bracelet in the exact same design, instantly reigniting Astrid's spirit. Without a single second of hesitation, Astrid ecstatically declares she will purchase the matching bracelet immediately. The shopkeeper presents the modified pearl bracelet for 8,200 lumen, and Astrid gasps at the flawless, sparkling result. Clasping her new treasure, Astrid beams with pure joy, warmly thanking the kind shopkeeper for her assistance. Rushing out with her prize, Astrid suddenly collides headfirst into a tall figure standing right outside the door. Astrid is startled to find Damon waiting for her, frantically correcting herself as she asks what he's doing there.
Astrid stands frozen as Damon's stern, analytical gaze locks onto her, intensifying the sudden confrontation.
Damon awkwardly explains that he had intended to escort her safely, only to find she had vanished from her quarters. Damon reveals he searched the entire city before finally tracking her down to this specific boutique. Astrid deeply apologizes for slipping away without notice, but Damon gently reassures her that her safety is all that truly matters. Astrid happily shares her desire to buy souvenirs for their companions, earning a warm, supportive nod of understanding from Damon. Walking together under a stunning twilight sky, Damon checks on her well-being, to which Astrid replies that the fresh air has done wonders. The scene shifts back to their cozy quarters as the peaceful day winds down. The adorable white cat Perry leaps with absolute joy, thrilled to see her favorite human return home. Astrid affectionately scoops up Perry, showering the happy feline with warm hugs and sweet baby talk. Snuggling close, Astrid admits she foolishly feared her beloved pet might have forgotten her during her long absence. Suddenly remembering her secret mission, Astrid excitedly announces she brought home a special surprise for the curious cat. Perry looks absolutely majestic wearing the newly purchased pearl collar. The elegant feline poses proudly on the bed, showing off her dazzling new accessory. Astrid eagerly asks if she likes her new collar as Perry tilts her head in adorable confusion. Scratching her favorite spot, Astrid laughs joyfully as Perry purrs in absolute contentment, loving the extra attention. Collapsing onto the comfortable bed, Astrid holds Perry close, completely content with how perfectly the day has ended. Lying peacefully, Astrid sighs in relief, celebrating the comforting warmth of finally being back in her safe haven.
Meanwhile, vital news arrives from the ecap Merchant Guild confirming they have successfully swayed the Count to their side. The noble officially declares they must now prepare to transport the crucial magic stones directly to the Grand Duchy of Sort. A mysterious figure watches the developments unfold, pleased to see their master plan finally moving into its next phase. The dark-haired commander smiles, confident that victory is well within their grasp. Astrid, officially introduced as the chief medical officer, nervously accepts praise for her indispensable role in securing this vital alliance. Following the high-stakes negotiation, everything shifts, leaving the team poised for their most dangerous move yet. A high-stakes war council turns deadly serious as crucial military secrets finally rise to the surface. Jin analyzes the strategic situation, gaining a crystalline view of how their enemies operate. Astrid listens with intense focus, sensing the sudden weight of the conversation around them. Astrid secretly gloats, knowing her knowledge of the original plot remains her ultimate trump card. The room freezes as Jin suddenly inquires about the legendary naval commander Rowan Lectio. Shocked by the mention, Astrid struggles to keep her composure as eyes turn toward her. Jin questions where the incredibly skilled naval commander could have vanished to after her battle. Jin reveals that the legendary commander vanished without a trace 4 months prior. Astrid gasps in utter disbelief upon learning Rowan vanished during the Bruman region invasion. Panicking over her slip-up, Astrid frantically tries to cover up her suspicious reaction. Astrid quickly deflects, claiming she merely admires the famous female naval commander from afar. The grand history of Rowan Lectio, the Marquis's brilliant eldest daughter, flashes through her mind. Astrid recalls that the family's heir was originally supposed to be Rowan's younger brother, Matthias. But a scandalous secret soon brought a devastating stain upon the proud noble household. With her disgraced brother disowned, Rowan was forced to take up the family mantle. According to the novel's original plot, Ron was destined to join the rebellion years later. But the timeline has shifted drastically, leaving her missing in the present day. A chilling revelation hits Astrid as she suddenly pieces together the missing puzzle pieces. Jin notices her sudden distraction and gently asks if she figured something out. Astrid suggests that Rowan might have fled to the Kingdom of Murmur to find her brother. She proposes that the siblings have been maintaining highly classified contact this entire time. Astrid visualizes the immense geopolitical alliance that could shape the future of this conflict. Knowing Chain holds a massive grudge, she realizes they can secure a powerful new ally. Panic strikes Astrid again as she realizes she might have just spoken far too much. Forcing herself to stand tall, Astrid desperately tries to look completely natural and unsuspicious. To her immense relief, a soft, amused smile plays across the handsome commander's lips. Jin marvels at her extensive connections, admitting he underestimated her deep knowledge of high society. Astrid nervously claims she merely overheard a massive amount of gossip in her old village. She frantically plays down her brilliant insight, calling it ancient history she randomly picked up. Their silver-haired companion chimes in, admitting that her theory is actually an incredible lead. Jin decides to investigate the matter, eager to uncover why the commander vanished mid-battle. With their immediate plans locked in, Jin officially concludes the high-stakes tactical briefing. Relieved that her cover holds, Astrid quickly gathers her papers to slip out unnoticed. Her escape is instantly cut short as Jin commands her to stay behind alone. Astrid freezes in absolute panic, terrified that her elaborate cover is finally blown. Jin hesitates for a split second, a soft but nervous tension lingering on his face. Looking slightly flustered, Jin unexpectedly asks if she has any other plans for tonight. Stunned by the personal question, Astrid honestly admits that she is completely free tonight. A warm, brilliant light fills the room as Jin prepares to deliver his invitation. Standing close together amidst blooming white flowers, the atmosphere shifts to something deeply intimate. Jin suggests a late-night visit to the magic stone mine, a perfect seasonal sight. He explains the quiet minds always eased his heavy mind, prompting Astrid's general concern. Astrid agrees to the date on one strict condition: he must eat dinner first. Jin flashes an incredibly tender blushing smile, utterly charmed by her caring nature. As night falls, the silent hallways of their estate prepare for their secret departure. Back in her room, Astrid's heart races as she gets ready for a walk. She worries if this midnight stroll is actually a clever trap to test her identity. Before her wild thoughts can spin further, a sudden knock on the door startles her. Throwing on her warmest wrap, Astrid eagerly rushes out to greet her handsome escort. Jin stands waiting under the moonlight, ready to lead her into a night of secrets. Under the soft glow of moonlight and blooming white flowers, a handsome commander awaits her arrival as he announces he has come to escort her for the night. Deep within the glistening frozen corridors of the magic stone mine, Jin breaks the silence by gently asking if she is wearing the scarf she knitted for him. Walking deeper into the cold cavern, Astrid silently studies his quiet profile, thinking to herself that he seems even more silent than usual. Suddenly, Astrid's eyes widen in sheer astonishment as she catches sight of an incredible wonder hidden in the depths of the cave. Before her lies a magical pool of crystal clear blue water, blanketed by dozens of glowing yellow flowers that leave her utterly speechless. Captivated by the breathtaking sight, Astrid leans closer to the glowing pool while Jin watches her with a gaze full of warmth and affection. Gently pointing to a shimmering blossom, Jin identifies it as a rare aquaflower that only grows in the treacherous northern mountains. Astrid wonders how such a flower could possibly end up here, but Jin softly calls out her name, breaking her train of thought. Sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere, Astrid turns around to look up at him, her heart skipping a beat.
With a deeply tender, blushing smile, Jin wishes her a happy birthday, confessing he wanted to be the very first person to say it. The revelation hits Astrid like a tidal wave as she suddenly remembers that today is indeed October 29th, her birthday in this world. Memories of her past life as a hardworking office worker flash before her, reminding her of how long it has been since someone celebrated her. Closing the distance between them, Jin leans in close with a playful look, teasingly asking if she actually managed to forget her own birthday. Jin reminds her of how much of a big deal she made out of his birthday, making it clear he wanted to return the gesture. Flustered and blushing red, Astrid frantically waves her hands, sheepishly stammering that she has simply been far too busy lately to track the days. Letting out a soft chuckle, Jin expresses his delight that his secret plan worked out perfectly before reaching to retrieve a special item. With a bright, dazzling smile, Jin extends his hands to present her with a luxurious red jewelry box, declaring it to be her birthday present. Astrid's breath catches in her throat as her eyes widen in disbelief, instantly recognizing the high-end jeweler's logo on the red box. Trembling with anticipation, she opens the box to reveal a breathtaking pearl necklace adorned with massive sparkling green gemstones. A sudden flashback rushes through her mind, showing the exact moment she had stood outside the shop window, staring longingly at this precious item. Realization dawning on her, Astrid confronts Jin, playfully accusing him of lying about being tired earlier just to sneak back and buy it. Blushing sheepishly, Jin looks away and rubs the back of his neck, confessing that his only intention was to make sure it was a perfect surprise. Letting out a radiant, emotional laugh, Astrid clutches the box tightly to her chest, begging him not to pull such heart-stopping stunts again. In an adorable, stylized moment of pure joy, Astrid eagerly pumps her fists in agreement, ready for the next step of their romantic evening. Looking up at him with sparkling eyes, Astrid happily consents, allowing him to step closer to fasten the beautiful jewelry around her neck. Astrid reaches up to gather her soft brown hair, lifting it high to expose her elegant neck for him. Step by step, the tension rises as Jin carefully holds the glowing pearl and emerald necklace around her neck, his cheeks flushed with a deep red blush. Leaning in close to fasten the clasp, Jin is completely captivated, noting that she smells sweet, like fresh lavender. Astrid stands frozen as her heart beats frantically, feeling his warm fingers gently brushing against her bare skin. With a quiet click, the necklace is safely secured as Jin whispers that he is finished, prompting Astrid to offer a soft, breathless thank you. Turning back to face him, Astrid flashes a brilliant, blushing smile, silently asking if the beautiful necklace truly suits her. Looking closely at his face, Astrid's concern flares up as she notices his deep blush, but a flustered Jin frantically insists he is perfectly fine. Fearing that the cold cave air is making him sick, Astrid insists that they should cut their midnight walk short and head back immediately. Instead of agreeing, Jin simply gazes down at her with an incredibly soft, tender smile, completely overwhelmed by her caring nature. As Astrid internally panics over his health, Jin chuckles and waves his hands, reassuring her that he is completely healthy and asking her to trust him. Letting out a sigh of relief, Astrid's bright smile returns as she happily decides she would love to stay in this magical cavern just a little longer. Sitting side by side near the glowing blue water, Astrid gazes at the floating blossoms, curiously asking if they are truly rare. It suddenly dawns on Astrid that obtaining these rare flowers must have cost an absolute fortune, prompting a warm, soft laugh from Jin. Without a word, Jin gently takes one of the shimmering yellow flowers into his palm, leaning closer to her. Astrid freezes in absolute shock as his hand gently reaches up, tucking the brilliant, glowing flower softly behind her ear. Looking at her with unmatched tenderness, Jin explains that he wanted to give her a beautiful flower, just like the one she had previously given to him. Astrid is left completely breathless, her heart beating wildly against her chest as she stares at his handsome, smiling face in stunned silence. Under the magical glow of the cavern, Jin offers his most beautiful, dazzling smile yet, formally wishing Dr. Astrid Ober a truly wonderful birthday. As the glowing yellow flower shimmers on the water's surface, Astrid's voice trembles with emotion as she softly whispers her deepest gratitude to Jin. The magical night eventually draws to a close, and back in her room, Astrid stands before the mirror, admiring the sparkling green gemstones. Wearing both the glowing yellow flower and the exquisite pearl necklace, Astrid beams with pure happiness, feeling more cherished than ever. Looking down at her adorable white cat Perry, Astrid giggles in delight, realizing she now has a matching pearl accessory with her beloved pet. Smiling softly, she carefully removes the yellow flower and places it down on her dresser, intending to treasure it forever. Suddenly, a wave of intense romantic panic washes over her as she doubles over, desperately crying out that his incredibly sweet actions will give her the wrong idea. Gazing out at the quiet, moonlit night, Astrid is left with a thrilling, terrifying question echoing in her mind. Could Jin actually have real feelings for her? Astrid hilariously rationalizes that if simple kindness meant romance, then even Richard would be in love with her. Flustered and blushing deeply, the young doctor tries to shake off her wildly romantic thoughts. Gently touching the glowing yellow flower, Astrid questions if she is merely misinterpreting genuine kindness. Staring at the beautiful blossom, she tries to find a logical explanation for Jin's sudden sweetness. Standing before her mirror, Astrid contemplates her confusing feelings in the quiet room. She resolves that there is absolutely no reason to hide away in embarrassment over her thoughts. Memories of Jin's thoughtful birthday gestures flash through her mind, challenging her attempts to downplay them.
She bites her lip in a quiet moment of vulnerability and lingering doubt.
Astrid collapses onto her bed, desperately telling her cat that the commander cannot possibly like her. Her adorable white cat Perry simply meows back, seemingly amused by her panic. Lying down, Astrid reasons that their shared age and birthday are just coincidences. She cuddles up tight, determined to stop her overactive imagination from running completely wild.
The fabric of her elegant yellow gown pulls softly over the edge of the bed.
Glancing at her new treasures, she decides to focus entirely on her present life. Early the next morning, loud knocking on her bedroom door suddenly wakes Astrid from her slumber.
Still half asleep, Astrid rubs her eyes and opens the door to see who is calling. Her sleepiness instantly vanishes as she gasps in pure wide-eyed shock at what stands before her.
Her eyes widen to the limit, completely frozen in utter disbelief. Astrid is left completely speechless as she processes the unexpected surprise awaiting her. A cheerful blonde boy stands in the hallway looking up at her with a bright smile. The young boy proudly presents Astrid with a hand-drawn picture as his special birthday gift to her.
Astrid is deeply touched by the adorable crayon drawing of their small, happy family.
Eagerly pulling her along, the boy reveals that the entire estate has gathered gifts for her.
Astrid is overjoyed to receive a useful portable magnifier and sweet lavender-scented fabric softener.
The wonderful surprises keep coming with a delicious two-tier strawberry cake and the latest research thesis. Astrid greets her silver-haired companion, Richard, who stands waiting with a warm, handsome smile.
Richard steps forward to offer his own carefully prepared birthday present, delighting her.
Inside the box is a batch of delicious, beautifully made, handmade ganache chocolates.
After a polite exchange of gratitude, Richard bids her farewell and heads back to his duties.
A stack of colorful gift boxes tumbles onto the table in a joyful, chaotic heap.
Looking at the mountain of presents, Astrid realizes it has been years since anyone celebrated her birthday like this. She remembers how lonely her birthdays became once she started living completely on her own.
A sudden, painful memory of her past life's tragic end flashes through her mind, filling her with guilt.
She recalls her former self, a lonely corporate worker facing the grim shadows of her past.
Astrid gently reaches down to touch the blonde boy's crayon drawing, pulling herself back to reality.
The crude but heartwarming drawing serves as a powerful reminder of the love surrounding her now. Clasping the drawing to her chest, she firmly accepts that this world is her true home now. Surrounded by gifts, Astrid smiles warmly, declaring this to be the happiest birthday of her entire life. The peaceful atmosphere shatters as a crowd of sick patients floods the clinic with matching symptoms. Donning a protective mask, Astrid quickly assesses the cases of fever, coughing, and extreme fatigue.
Her assistant, Eddie, approaches with a worried expression, sensing that something is terribly wrong.
The sheer volume of patients sharing identical symptoms raises immediate alarms inside the busy ward. Astrid realizes with growing dread that they might be facing a highly infectious and dangerous epidemic. Astrid immediately springs into action, ordering Eddie to have Richard prepare an isolation ward. She mandates strict quarantine protocols, ensuring no one enters her quarters to prevent further spread. Gripping her head in intense stress, Astrid plans to have Louis brew mass quantities of disinfectant. The horrifying truth hits her. Without modern vaccines or antibiotics, treating a viral outbreak is nearly impossible. Rummaging through her medical drawers, Astrid realizes symptom management is their only desperate line of defense. The immense pressure of a full-blown medical crisis threatens to push her to her absolute limit. Richard enforces strict safety guidelines, ordering everyone to wear protective masks and double down on hygiene.
The tension is palpable as the dark-haired commander demands to know the doctor's condition.
Richard looks down somberly, admitting that Astrid appeared to be absolutely exhausted. Gripping the desk in silent torment, Jin's anxiety for her safety threatens to overwhelm him. They find a grim silver lining in containing the deadly outbreak within these isolated walls. Reviewing the medical reports, Richard confirms that their containment strategy is holding strong. Relieved but burdened, Jin admits that keeping her isolated was their only choice. Gazing into the distance, Jin ponders his true, deeply buried feelings for Astrid. Despite the danger, he fights a desperate urge to run directly to her side. Alone with his thoughts, the commander softly confesses just how much he misses her. Meanwhile, Astrid stands by her patient's bedside, her thoughts drifting to the commander. The masked doctor lightheartedly laments missing her cherished companions and her beloved cat. But deep down, her heart yearns for one specific person above all others. The warm, breathtaking memory of Jin's dazzling smile flashes before her eyes. Emitting an adorable panic, Astrid frantically shakes her head to dispel her romantic thoughts. Suddenly, her eyes widen in shock as a jarring sensation strikes her senses. Gripping the wall for support, she stumbles as a sudden wave of dizziness hits. Astrid clutches herself in confusion, wondering if she merely overexerted her neck. Vision blurring, a blinding, painful light flashes behind her eyes as her strength fades. She desperately tries to brush the dizzy spell off as a minor inconvenience. At last, the grueling isolation period officially comes to a triumphant end. The clinic echoes with cheers as the hard-working medical staff is finally dismissed. Richard approaches Astrid to praise her for her brilliant, life-saving efforts. Flashing a bright, weary smile, Astrid credits their success to his incredibly fast thinking. Concern clouds Richard's face as he notices her shockingly pale complexion. Dismissing his fears, Astrid insists on immediately delivering her reports to the commander. She quietly decides to quickly freshen up and change her clothes first.
Sensing her extreme frailty, Richard desperately tries to intervene and stop her.
His words are cut short as the final threads of her strength snap. Right before his eyes, Astrid's body suddenly goes limp as she begins to fall.
Richard's eyes widen in sheer unadulterated horror as her collapse unfolds.
With scattered papers fluttering around, Astrid falls unconscious onto the hardwooden floor. A desperate panic scream for the doctor echoes through the empty hallway. Astrid lies motionless on the ground, sweat pooling on her feverish brow. Springing into urgent action, Reichardt scoops her up and runs to find help.
Laying her gently onto a bed, he desperately begs her to stay conscious.
Astrid groans in agony, completely consumed by a sudden, violent fever. Powerless and devastated, Richard looks down at her, suffering in silent agony. He hesitantly reaches out toward her cold, limp hand in a quiet moment of grief. The door is violently slammed open as an angry voice demands immediate answers. A trembling hand aggressively grabs Richard by the collar, pulling him forward. A completely enraged, terrified Jen demands to know why Astrid has collapsed like this.